Our story begins with the stylized main menu that, along with the theme, are burned into my brain. So replaying this game in 2022, I'm transported back to my childhood.
You sit there and tell me, you have everything for you to do and sit there and tell me I'm not good enough for you.
The opening exposition brief informs us we're in Washington, D.C., responding to a terrorist attack in the D.C. subway system regarding a viral agent. And our targets are Romer, Kravich, Aramov, and Gurdu. Okay, so Syphon Filter's story is a bit complicated, but I'll do my best. You're Gabe Logan, and your partner is Leon Zing. You work for a secret government agency named The Agency. Wow. You've been investigating a series of biological attacks by the international terrorist group Black Baton, which is led by a guy named Romer. You and your partner Leon go to Costa Rica after another agent goes cold because he was sent to investigate a biological attack, and you're pretty sure Black Baton was behind it. These are drug operations being used as covers to ship around chemicals related to this new, scary virus, Syphon Filter. And now there's an in-progress attack on DC, specifically the subway system. The FBI and Interpol both have intel claiming it's Black Baton, who now want to release the virus which will spread 100 miles wide in DC. So both Leon and you are going in order to stop and or minimize it. Did you get all that? It's not overly complicated when you look back on it, but the game doesn't do a great job of presenting itself to the player. If you wanted to read a Tom Clancy novel, you'd be doing that, not playing Syphon Filter. There are brief text expositions that give you important information before every level as well as a cutscene. Those together do a pretty good job of keeping the player up to speed with the plot, and if you don't care, they're easily ignored and skipped. The music also never cuts out from exposition text, cutscene to gameplay. It's so beautifully seamless. The tense spy soundtrack, crisp voice acting, and punchy sound effects all make for a retro PlayStation experience. Someone who knows more about audio than me needs to do a breakdown on this game's sound and music. The first level, especially the opening, is so gosh dang iconic, and I love everything about it. Right away we're into the action. The music is bumping, and we're fighting alongside AI allies. How cool is that? I always thought AI buddies in games was so cool as a kid. And did you see that police car? So these guys in the yellow hazmat suits are the CBDC, the US Army Chemical and Biological Defense Command. They're actually pretty competent. They're even better shots than Black Baton. The first part is also a great tutorial for the gameplay. You're at risk of dying, which makes it exciting, but not so much that it's difficult or that you can't take a minute to get your bearings. And this is where Syphon Filter shows you it's like nothing else. Obviously it's a third-person shooter, but to aim, you hold R1 to lock onto a nearby enemy, then press square to shoot. When locked on, a target bar will appear top left. Once it's high or full, you will land more of your shots. What affects this accuracy is Logan's position relative to the target, his stance, such as crouching or running, and any obstacles between him and the target. What's even more interesting is this isn't unique to you. All the enemies function the same way. An enemy aiming at you will create a danger bar, and the exact same rules apply. Once it's full, their shots will start landing and you can't take too many hits before dying. You can take cover of course, but rolling is also a decent way to lower this bar or keep it from peaking. I've never played a game like this since. Maybe there are people who hated it, but I super respect how unique it is. John Garvin, creative director for IDEC, now Ben Studios, wrote for a PlayStation blog in 2012 that Syphon Filter was almost cancelled several times. The only concrete aspects of the game were that they wanted the player to feel like a super spy, and the title, Syphon Filter. Garvin was asked, how close to your original concept was the final game? To which he replies, Syphon Filter just wasn't developed that way. The original concept of the player becoming a super spy was adhered to pretty closely, but everything else was worked out as we developed. I don't think I'm out of line to infer that the gameplay mechanics of this game can largely be attributed to all these rewrites. It's kind of crazy the game turned out to be as good as it is considering they were shuffling around level order just weeks before the game was shipped. I can't say I've played a game that plays like Syphon Filter since. It's so weird, but it works. It's almost its own genre because of the aiming and combat system. Oh, and you can also manually aim by entering a first-person mode, but you can't move while doing so, so it's a dangerous trade-off. If you're fast enough, it's a good way to land headshots. These guys at the start will keep coming, so while it's a good place to get our feet wet, don't stay here too long. It's tough for Zoomers to remember, but games having endlessly respawning enemies was fairly common just a few decades ago. Though this is the perfect place to indulge in Syphon Filter's most famous feature, this taser. For some hilarious reason, you have this ridiculously long-range taser to zap guys with until they begin to smoke and eventually burst into flames. There's so much detail put into this. There's a cinematic camera, unique voice lines, and animations. If you ask a Syphon Filter fan what they remember of the game, they'll likely mention the taser first. Is it a particularly effective weapon? I mean, it locks the enemy in place, but otherwise no, since it does the same to you. You can still take damage while using it. Also, if an enemy has body armor, it straight up won't work. Unless you tase them in the head, which, Jesus Christ, Gabe, you're supposed to be the good guy. This first level has a few places we have to go, as we have a few different objectives. Eliminate Kravich, destroy a communication array, eliminate Romer, and not listed, but defuse any dirty bombs we find. As you run around many of the levels, you can get codec calls MGS style. They'll give you additional objectives or relevant information.
Gabe, this must be where the subway security bypass switch is located. Find it and shut it off.
Copy. See if you can find a copy of the subway system security protocols.
This does a superb job of making you feel like you really are in a race against time, fighting a constantly changing situation and having to adapt as you go. You know, spy shit. First we run into an empty bank and assist the CBDC in disarming a bomb. Also, you'll need to keep an eye out for pitch black rooms. There are often crates containing special equipment and weapons in them, grenade launchers, flak jackets, etc. You can use your flashlight, which is a really neat mechanic. It's sad to say, but I'm impressed when games actually have the balls to play with light meaningfully. Looking at you, Dark Souls 2, I'm still mad. After, right at the start of the level, if you run through the glass door of this bar like a psycho, you'll get another call from Leon. Kravich is the first time you'll encounter an armored enemy, which we'll see periodically throughout the game. You can just unload into them, but it's a far better idea to go for headshots. There are also armor-piercing weapons we'll acquire in future levels, but we'll get to that later. I also want to point out destructible light sources in this game. I want to go back when environments were interactable. So with Kravich and the communications array eliminated, it's time to head into the subway. But before we can do that, we need to unlock the subway gate. To do that, we'll go down the sketchy back alley maintenance elevator, where we receive yet another call from Leon. Please stop calling. We also use our flashlight again, and find the switch for the subway entrance. With that settled, let's make our way back, but not before grabbing the hidden grenade launcher. You just gotta shimmy across this pipe, but when you do, you'll be attacked by some terrorists. Another neat feature, you can fire one-handed weapons while dangling like this, but you can't reload. Back at the start, down the ramp, and another hidden crate. It's just got armor, which we don't need though. This is a good time to briefly explain the health system. You have armor, which you replenish via picking up flak jackets either via crates or from killing enemies wearing them. If you run into an enemy wearing one, which is only signified by aiming at them and seeing the text denoting such, then you must kill them with a headshot. If you just shoot them in the chest until they're dead, you'll ruin the armor. It makes sense, right? Once your armor runs out, you'll be down to your health, and you can only take a couple shots at that point. It's a simple but effective system, and I like the added touches of killing an enemy for their armor. The game is generally pretty generous with flak jacket crates though. The difficulty feels just right. You'll die a few times and have to use your brain sometimes, but overall it's nothing impenetrable. Down in the subway, the trains are still running for some reason, so watch out for those. We'll use our pump shotgun for easy kills.
Bump beat.
Sometimes the AI can be a little off.
Gabe, what's happening?
I'm setting a beacon. Wait. Leon, this one's different from the others. It has a shorter timer, and it looks...
Gabe, that's not viral. It's...
Too late!
With the subway destroyed, we have to be cautious around the fire. It's instant death. Take it from this man. It's a bit of a maze down here. You need to find and use explosives to clear a path for the CBDC so that they can defuse one of the viral bombs. Leon also finds out that the terrorists are making their way through the tunnels to the nearby park. After finding explosives and letting in the bomb squad, and by squad I mean a single guy, we gotta defend them. We receive intel that Romer has fled DC and our fellow agents are facing heavy resistance in Washington Park. While making our way through the subway tunnels, we run into Mara Aramov, a notorious international assassin. You know, spy shit. You gotta defeat her while swapping between the two subway tracks, dodging trains and taking out enemies. She has a flak jacket, but I have plenty of ammo.
Where's Romer? Where are the other bombs?
You're too late, Logan.
We'll see. Leon, I'm on my way to the park. Romer is going to trigger the main viral device whether or not the government meets his demands.
I'm already on it.
The smaller viral bombs are hidden throughout the park. Benton, what's going on?
CBDC's getting slaughtered. We need you to track down the viral devices and provide covering fire while CBDC agents come in and disarm them.
Copy that. I'll give them cover as long as I can. Okay, let's do it.
I'm assuming the devs couldn't get the lighting on this level quite right, so they went with green, giving it a pseudo night vision look. There are 4 more bombs to defuse here. Pro tip, elevation is your friend. Get up high if you can, and Gabe's auto aim will do the rest. We get a few new toys in this level too, including a night vision sniper that's trash, and an M1911, which is not. It has a slow rate of fire, but kills unarmored enemies in like 1 or 2 hits. Further ahead, and we have a hostage situation to contend with. 2 Black Baton members have 2 CBDC agents at gunpoint. We go slow and take them out with some poorly placed headshots. A nice little quality of life mechanic this game does is it lets you know via text on your reticle whether you'll land a headshot or not. We find a communications array to destroy on top of a statue I like to call the best the PlayStation 1 could do.
Leon, connection's complete.
I'm tracking a mobile signal just north of you, towards the Freedom Memorial in the hedge maze area.
Check Romer's file and see who he's been using as triggerman. I'll bet these bombs are set with a backup mobile detonator.
Got it. Jorge Marcos. I'm downloading his dossier into your comm device.
Add him to my hit list.
Goddamn, Gabe. And lucky for us, our target is right around the corner. He's armored, but he isn't a match for our newly acquired M16. We find the memorial guarded by armored terrorists, and inside, the most French man to have ever lived.
Die for him.
Gabriel Logan, always the optimist.
His only weak point is the small tank on his back. You have to break his line of sight, and then he'll begin patrolling around the central statue. This allows you to get shots off on his weak point. But while doing this, he'll spray flames around. You don't have to get totally behind him as long as you have a shot, so it's not too difficult. Fun fact about this level, the level itself was created over the weekend by the creative director I quoted earlier. Originally it was meant to take place in a car junkyard, but would have taken too much time and money to make. I hope we read him his Miranda rights. Next level is New York City in the Expo Center. We suspect a mole, another agent named Benton. Romer's men knew our movements ahead of time, leading to the death of Agent Jenkins. Which I mean, come on, your name's Jenkins, of course you're dying. So the agency gives us the go-ahead to plant a wire on the CEO of a massive pharmaceutical company linked to Romer's operations. We're looking for a solid link between the two, as well as any information pertaining to whether Benton's actually a mole or not. This is one of the few times where stealth is mandatory. We have a silenced pistol to use against guards, but we can only use it via headshots or its mission failed. The name of the game here is Taking It Slow, and doing some very light patrol pattern memorization. Failing the mission only sets you back about 2 minutes or so. But even better, we're using an emulator. God bless save states. Every game should have quick saving.
What are you doing here? You were never to come here.
Plans have changed.
Get out, both of you. We'll settle
As
this
of
later.
this moment, we no longer work for you. We want the location of the Syphon Filter lab.
Leon, I found the agency's leak.
You are.
Benton.
Where's
Benton,
Roma?
that son of a...
Get out, both of you. We'll settle this later.
Shut up. He's been bugged. Quickly, get him out of here.
Gabe, Fagan's run for it. Romer and Aramov went after him, but Benton's still in there with you.
He's finished.
With Benton dead, it's okay to go loud. Look at the size of these vents! The Expo Center has Egyptian stuff, Mayan stuff, space stuff, but the layout of it super turns me off. You need to find keycards, unlock doors, it ain't for me. I get turned around easily, so I spent way too long here. But there is one cool part where you have to roll under a gate before it closes. You know, spy shit. We also get the G18 in this level. This submachine gun sounds great and punches straight through armor. So we'll use the ammo sparingly. Aside from rolling under the closing gate, there's a few other parts of this level that require cleverness to progress. When you find the American Space Shuttle room, there will be an elevator that only seems to go up 2 floors, despite a third being clearly visible. Well, if you look up, you'll notice a sparking control panel. Stand on the elevator, then shoot the panel to get it to take you to the 3rd floor. This will bring you to another part of the Mayan exhibit where you can pick up a keycard needed to progress. It'll be found on the body of a guy you shot when you first entered this room. Now that we have the keycard, we head back to the moon landing exhibit, climb the ladder, then use it to reach the rafter above. The rafter leads us to the security room, completing the level. Men in black storm the security room and try to kill us. As you can see, the game's combat often does have a sort of floatiness to it. You have to stay moving to keep the target meter down, which results in you bumping Gabe up against walls and, if you're unlucky, falling off ledges. It's like a cover shooter, but less sensible. We improvise by climbing an overhead pipe and drop down into the lobby in a very unspy-like fashion. Like the lights, balloons are breakable. Neat. We head deep into the dinosaur exhibit until we run into Mara Aramov interrogating Fagin with some pretty terrible voice acting.
I can't tell you. Don't kill me.
You have to the count of 10 to tell me.
Somehow, tasing her brain is non-lethal. Unfortunately, we lose Fagin as more security enters the room, but we got Mara Aramov unconscious and take her into custody. The part I don't get is, remember when we subdued her in the subway by emptying like 3 magazines into her? Why'd we just leave her there for pickup? I get we had to keep moving at the time due to the attack in the park, and we probably don't carry zip ties, but Logan doesn't carry anything to knock someone out for a longer period of time? Like a chemical or something? This feels like something a spy would carry, no? Yes, killing an unconscious person isn't good memes. We can all agree on that. But also, she's an international assassin working with terrorists, and we caught her in the act of trying to gas a 100-mile area spreading from the American capital. Like, bruh, come on, do something more than just leaving her. With Aramov in custody, being kindly asked some questions, we discover Romer's operating out of an old Soviet base in Kazakhstan, which means we're going Fifth Freedom. The US government can't let Kazakhstan know, and they presumably can't trust them to deal with Romer and his base, so it's up to us. Our objectives are to plant C4 charges on 5 fuel tanks, kill the base commander, Gobrak, and infiltrate the missile bunker so we can tag the missiles inside and grab their launch codes. This is the second stealth mission. Unlike the first, it's not mandatory, but if you do spring an alarm, enemies will constantly come for you. Let's just go as far as we can, as quietly as we can. Again, that means light patrol route memorization and carefully placed headshots. These floodlights will also automatically raise an alarm if they spot you, though they can be shot out. The base's layout wouldn't normally be too confusing, but the heavy snow, low draw distance, and samey environment can cause you to be turned around here and there. We're on the lookout for these gas tanks. We find 3 early on, as well as some gas grenades that'll come in handy in a minute. Heading further into the base, we come across Gobrak followed closely by 2 bodyguards. The gas grenades are instant kills and have an area of effect. They're invaluable in this game, and this is a great example of that. We use them to take out all 3 men without raising the alarm. We also pick up a keycard off his corpse and tag the last fuel tank. Now we just need to head into the missile bunker. There's a gate we open by using the keycard, kill a few more guards, and make our way underground, all without raising the alarm. Inside, we still need to tag the missiles, then make our way to the roof. The opening briefing informs us that a silent alarm was triggered by us entering the bunker. It seems the designers needed the next level to be in an alarm state regardless of your actions in the previous level. I haven't talked about it yet, but Gabe changing outfits depending on the level is a great touch. I just love when games do that. Makes them feel more dynamic. And I like playing dress up in games. Sue me. No character customization, but it would be a bit ridiculous to have him wearing his DC clothes in Siberia. The bunker is on high alert, so no need to take it slow. There are red tripwire lasers that can be disabled by shooting the corresponding control panel. We navigate the lasers while dealing with the enemies and tagging the missiles. Leon informs us that enemies are approaching her position as she's waiting outside the base for us. Speaking of neat touches, I also love how shooting enemies creates bloodstains depending on where you shoot. That's something I wouldn't see again until Metal Gear Solid 2 on the PS2. We get the final missiles and head to the roof via a freight elevator. Disabling the radar on the roof, we call Leon for pickup. An American spy fighting a Russian attack helicopter on top of a military base's tower in the far north. Okay, so it does kind of remind me of Metal Gear Solid, but just a little bit. This boss battle has 2 phases. The first, the heli will hit you with strafe runs. It's important to take cover as he approaches, then fire back as he's leaving. Their guns will tear you apart. There's respawning ammo on the sides of the roof so you can't run dry. Damage him enough and the second phase begins. Enemy soldiers will start spawning 2 at a time. Take them out and the helicopter will hover above you for a bit to fire. After he's done, you can get shots off as he leaves. Keep this up and we got it.
Markinson, Leon's been killed. I need that chopper evac now. In 10 minutes, this place is gonna be a crater.
Fight your way to the main gate. We'll pick you up there.
Get used to the generic alarm sound. We'll be hearing it a lot as we make our escape. There's a timer bottom left that counts down from 3 minutes before this place blows and its mission failed. No real strategy here. We just have to backtrack the way we came in while killing the occasional enemy. The exit is blocked by 2 guys with flak jackets, and the OST briefly switches to the game's main theme, which is pretty sweet.
My God, Syphon Filter.
I don't know how Mara Aramov keeps escaping, but she's done it again. We've tracked her to a cathedral in Ukraine that's also Romer's stronghold. It also contains a lab where they're testing and producing Syphon Filter, a bioweapon that can be designed to target very specific people based on their genetics. Okay, so the Metal Gear comparisons are making more sense as I play. The gameplay, though, is still nothing alike. Anyway, we're heading in to shut it down. Markinson, our direct superior and head of the agency himself, is flying us in. We have a few shots of an experimental vaccine and are ordered to administer it to anyone we come across. I guess it's to keep a low profile, but the guards are all wearing religious robes, which I find pretty funny. You can also shoot the massive chandeliers that, for some reason, burst into flames as they come crashing down. Inside, the cathedral is full of medical scientists, doctors I guess, and test patients. We need to find 6 to complete the objective, as well as kill all the doctors we come across, which feels, kinda bad. I mean, I get it, but they don't even have weapons. I'm having the line flashbacks. Do you feel like a hero yet? This level has a striking and distinct look, but it is very samey the more time you spend in it, which makes it easy to get turned around. Did we already go down this hallway? I don't remember. Behind some of the stained glass windows are other rooms, so be sure to shoot them out when you see them. Taking an elevator to head deeper in, we find out that they're shipping test subject bodies around the world in order to transport and test the virus. Now the scientists are fighting back and I wish I didn't say anything. I don't feel bad anymore, screw these guys. But why? Surely there was another way to get outside. Pretty sunset though. There's also some neat churchy paintings during this part of the level. And another annoying stealth section. It's not too bad though, as all we have to do is slowly follow the scientist. I don't understand why he's walking when he knows we're here though. You'd think he'd have a sense of urgency.
Please, don't kill me.
Just relax. This won't hurt a bit.
I'll pay you. How much do you want? Thank God.
Shut up, Fagin. Move. I have him.
Give him 30 seconds to give you the location of the computers, then eliminate
No,
him.
wait a minute. You don't understand. You
Thousands
don't...
of people are dead, Fagin, because of you. 20 seconds.
Wait, you don't understand.
Time's up. Where are the sequencing computers?
An abandoned Soviet missile silo in Kazakhstan, beneath an old warehouse district, all right? All right?
Did you copy that?
Copy. I've got a strike force ready to move in. Get to the evac point. I'm sending in a retrieval unit.
What about Fagin?
Take him with you.
Let's go.
Wait, let me go. Your partner, she's alive.
Leon? You're lying. Move.
She is alive. Romer's men brought her here 5 days ago.
I don't believe you.
Promise to let me go, and I'll lead you to her.
Show me.
The good old days when games had escort missions really takes me back. Fagin's not too hard to defend, as the enemies prioritize Gabe. He also leads the way, as this place actually is a maze. It's in Ukraine, but it's clearly inspired by Paris catacombs, especially with the skulls in addition to the maze-like tunnels. Fagin turns out not to be lying and leads us to our partner Leon, who we thought was dead. So we fulfill our end of the deal and allow him to escape. Leon's a much better escortee, as she's super willing to fuck these guys up. Lots of them have flak jackets, so it's good to go for headshots when you can. Okay, so maybe I was a little off base about the Metal Gear comparisons. I stand by it's a completely different experience, but replaying this game as an adult, I can see why some people would compare the two. The viruses are extremely similar. They're both spy thrillers, fighting a Russian attack helicopter on top of a snowy tower in the north, etc, etc. I just want to kill Mara because of her terrible voice actor. It's so bad.
They're all the same in the end.
Mara.
We don't have much time. If you don't stop them, we will all die. Come on, I have a chopper.
What accent is this supposed to be? I know voice acting could be rough in the 90s, but was that really the best take you had? My own whining aside, it's time for a level that was way ahead of its time. You know how everyone thought it was cool AI characters would fight each other in Halo? The Marines, Flood, and Covenant would all fight regardless of the player's actions. That was awesome, right? Well, Syphon Filter did it first during this level way back in '99. I'm sure another game did it earlier, but seeing it in an action game was so cool as a kid. Little Zoomer me thought it was like being in the middle of a battle. Playing it again as an adult, you can see how formulaic it is. The AI isn't exactly fear, but it's still super cool. The strategy is to not aggro these guys. We have to make several trips around this general area, so it's somewhat of an endurance run. It's like open world, but very, very small. Maybe 2 city blocks, which was pretty impressive back in '99. Romer's men are fighting Fagins in a battle over Syphon Filter. Below these warehouses in Kazakhstan are computer servers that hold the Syphon Filter data, as well as missile silos. Fagin, as a reminder, is the head of Farcom, a massive pharmaceutical company that has been working with Romer in order to develop Syphon Filter. But now they're killing each other over the virus, thanks in part to our own efforts. They know the US government is after them, and all hell's let loose as 3 factions vie for control. Mara tells us the only way into the silo and computer servers is via a specific warehouse here, but it requires a code. A Farmcom suit by the name of Erickson has said code, so we need to find him and then make our way into Warehouse 76. While doing this, we also need to tag the bodies carrying Syphon Filter. Why the Kazakhstan government isn't here, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we, the US government, can't trust Russia and Kazakhstan to deal with it.
I'll ask the questions. I need the access codes to the silo mainframes. Now.
But I don't know.
I'm going to count to 3, then I pull the trigger.
But look,
1,
I don't know the codes.
2.
All right. Here it is. Please.
Stay here. If you move a muscle before I return, I'll take you out myself.
Are you sure, Gabe? We don't have a great track record of making people stay put. He's not a priority, so it's whatever. There's a sweet Bizon in this warehouse here, so don't miss it. The Bizon is such a great meme gun. The ammunition is held in a round tube that attaches to the barrel. It's so dumb looking that it wraps around to being cool. But what if instead of a magazine, it was like, you know, cinnamon rolls, how they come in those aluminum tubes? Yeah. Now that we have our cinnamon roll gun and the access codes, it's time to find our bodies. They're strewn about, so you gotta use the special dead body finder scope we only have for this level. It's a bit time consuming, so honestly, I'd just use a guide to speed up the process. You use the scope to see bodies through solid objects, but you have to be fairly close. Do this while also avoiding all the enemies, since remember, we're in a war zone. Then the entire area explodes as a guy throwing grenades at you hits some fuel tanks. I guess tagging the bodies was a waste of time, considering they're all about to be charcoal. This is one of the few times the game does a fixed camera angle, but it's neat. We could fight these guys in honorable combat, but let's just use the grenade launcher because fuck them. You're not getting me with that trick a second time, Syphon Filter. Leon contacts us to tell us that she's lost all contact with Command, aka the agency. Gabe tells her to keep trying, and if she does make contact, to inform them of the situation as we head into the underground facility. I love how crisp this game looks. It looks great, but we didn't get to see that back in '99 thanks to those curved juggernauts known as CRTs. I'm still not entirely sure why liberals want to teach about them in school, and why conservatives are against it. Maybe they hate scanlines or something. We need to shut the power down in order to bypass the laser. You know it's a spy game because lasers. Do they actually use laser security in buildings? Is that a thing? As a kid, I was led to believe every important building was protected by red lasers, and quicksand would be more of an issue in my daily life. Ironically, there's no power to an elevator we need to use, so we need to switch power by finding a different power relay so we can go to the main power relay thingy and turn off all the power, and I'm just very confused by all this, and I don't know what's going on. Someone help me. Also, everyone down here has flak jackets, and I don't like it. We flip the switch, use the elevator, kill these goobers, and overload the generator? Wait, why don't we have much of a choice? There's not just a switch or button to turn off the power? Really? It's very difficult to see now what with no lights, and no power, and no powered lights, but enemies can see us just fine somehow. They're not aware of your presence initially, so you can be careful and get some headshots before they see you. There's no timer on screen, but you have to get through this part in a minute or two, or it auto fails and Gabe becomes extra crispy. We climb up to the missile and grab the codes.
Markinson.
Of course I knew you would solve the puzzle eventually. I expect only the best from my men. Where is Romer?
You're asking me? How long has Romer been working for you, Markinson?
Since your mission to Costa Rica. When you discovered the connection between Romer's plantation and Fagan, I did some digging of my own through our monitor at the WHO.
And decided that you wanted the virus for yourself.
For the agency, actually.
And the missile?
The missile was my idea. Markinson came here to stop it, but he was too late. As are you.
Who's the target, Romer?
Does it matter?
Or just let him walk away, that's cool too. The missile's taking off and we have 5 seconds to roll under the closing hatch door. Leon informs us that NATO is tracking the missile and World War III is about to kick off unless we can stop the missile and save the world. Which of course we can, because we're Gabe Nevermind. Okay, that's awkward. One of these scientists have a keycard we need, which leads down into the missile control room. We have 30 seconds to find the specific controls needed to blow up the missile, but I got stuck on a wall and died, giving me this pretty amusing glitch. It's the only one I've experienced in this entire game, so let's try that again. I know where the switch is this time, so it's just a matter of getting to it without dying.
Leon, I made it. I'm triggering the missile's detonator now.
NATO spy sats are tracking it. There it goes. Thank God, Gabe, you've done it.
I'm downloading the virus information now. I'm ready for pickup.
Don't you know when to quit, Logan? We'd have made a great team.
I don't think so.
Don't you know when to quit, Logan?
Romer, what the heck? Spawn killing ain't cool. But the game couldn't end without a boss battle. The world may be saved, but Gabe is my world, and we need to help him defeat Romer. Pro tip, use gas grenades for an instant kill. And that's Syphon Filter, an enjoyable piece of PlayStation history. It looks nice, plays fine so long as you can tolerate its unorthodox aiming system, and has an engaging story. It does a great job making you feel like you're playing a spy movie, even if you're not completely following the plot. All the characters are surprisingly well written considering the game's writers were the game's designer and artist. This isn't Macbeth, but you do get a good sense of who these characters are, their motivations, and their relationships with one another. And hey, for a PlayStation game released in 1999, that's good enough for me. Also, game storylines being written by the same people who coded the thing is something I always enjoy learning about. Before the credits can roll, however, we get a final cutscene baiting a sequel, of which we'd get many. Syphon Filter 2 and 3 would also release on the PlayStation, and then Dark Mirror and Logan Shadow for the PSP and eventually ported to the PS2. But that's for another time. Thanks so much for watching, I'll see you guys next time. Syphon Filter 2 was made in 1 year. Can you make a good AAA action game in such a short amount of time?
Not sure. I'm making this up as I go.
The original Syphon Filter, or SF as no one calls it, went from concept to finished product in about 12 months, which even back in 1999 was a very short cycle. The game had a cursed development, with levels being moved around weeks before the game was shipped to stores. You play as Gabe Logan, a secret agent working for the US government, although that wasn't the original premise for the game.
The power of the Earth is basically manifested in what were called siphons, these kind of ethereal Gaia things, and there were certain members of humanity, there were certain people who could filter the siphons to turn this raw planet energy into basically what allowed humanity to survive, and you were one of the Syphon Filters.
What the fuck? Syphon Filter quickly proved a massive hit, and Sony quickly proved they wanted a sequel. Unlike the original, however, co-creators Garvin and Ham already had an entire game planned out. So although SF2, which no one calls it, also only had a year's development cycle, it was easier to make thanks to the pre-planning already having been done. Plus IDIC, now Ben Studios, had some experience under their belt, which is important since their prior game, Bubsy, well, it's fucking Bubsy. If anything, that's like negative experience. Anyway, this new Syphon Filter would be the first, but bigger and better. Also, they made this commercial that I find funny, but maybe not for the intended reason.
The taser.
Yeah, taser wouldn't be bad. It might leave a little rash mark.
That's not how the game's taser works. Let me show you. Now, I'm not a marketing guy, but I'd have to assume doesn't play well on daytime television. Fun fact about the taser, it's actually hidden in the first level, unlike the first game which has you start with it. So don't be like me, beat the entire game twice, then write an entire page in your retrospective about why SF2 doesn't have the iconic taser when it does. How did I find this out? Well, I googled it. I should have done that first, huh? The story picks up 4 hours after the end of the first game. The US and Kazakhstan governments are blaming the nuclear explosion on an accident. Anyway, Leon has the Syphon Filter virus, but, like, inside her, and Logan is being chased by the agency he used to work for, called the Agency. It's a little confusing. Anyway, he escapes with the help of a rockin' montage.
Leon, you copy?
Logan leaves with his team who are still loyal to him, but his plane, along with the Syphon Filter virus data, is shot down. Logan kicks open the plane's door, which I don't think is possible, and bails out. We parachute down, which surprised me as a kid. It's such a short segment, why add it into the game? It's awesome they did, but it feels a little unnecessary. There's no way to fail it, and it has no benefits or consequences. You can't win at it, and you just slowly fall down. I even feel a little bit silly explaining it. Why is it in the game? Anyway, it's little touches like that that make me love this series. After landing, we meet up with a few of our guys, but one's got a broken leg, so we head off to find our boy Chance. Remember that name, it'll become important later. The agency, aka the guys we used to work for, are on our tail, so it's time to talk about the combat. Like the first game, Logan still has the exaggerated swagger of a super spy. Though it doesn't show through the video, the controls have been noticeably tightened up. It feels way better. Speaking of controls, they're all customizable. Want to make the aim button X? Sure thing. Otherwise, the combat has been largely unchanged. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It uses a unique system unlike any other game series, as far as I know. As enemies try to shoot you, a danger meter will fill up, top left. Once it reaches full, their shots will start landing. Likewise, your own target meter works in reverse. Once it's full, your own shots will begin hitting their marks. You cannot get hit unless the danger meter is full, and likewise, you cannot hit the enemy unless the target meter is full. Running, crouching, dodging, and of course taking cover will all influence these meters. So it's an action game, but it's a bit tactical too. You also have 2 life bars, represented first by your armor, which can be replaced by finding flak jackets in crates or by headshotting enemies wearing them. But if you go for chest shots, you'll destroy said armor, meaning you can't pick it up. Which is just again, an awesome attention to detail. Once that's gone, you have your health bar. Though you can only take 2 or 3 shots before you're dead. Richard Hamm, one of the co-creators I keep bringing up, pushed really hard for even more realism. He wanted the game to be more realistic, but ran into issues of it, well, not being fun. Which yeah, I can see it. If a game leans too much into realism, unless it's a simulator, it usually just doesn't work out. Something that often annoys me is when people complain about realism or fantasy in media, as if it's a binary. Like it needs to be one or the other. But I strongly feel that's misunderstanding fiction. Syphon Filter is a ridiculous action movie turned video game, but it has a logic to it must follow. Here's a simple thought experiment. What'd break your immersion more in a Syphon Filter game? Logan jumping off a mountain to avoid being hit by a helicopter's missile, or a dragon suddenly appearing? Hint, one of these happened. The first level ends with Logan jumping off a mountain and surviving a rock slide to avoid being caught in an explosion. It's ridiculous, sure, but it's in line with Syphon Filter's established rules. It's not unbelievable that Logan, Super Spy, could do this in his universe. Just because a piece of fiction has fantastical elements to it doesn't mean it has no consistency or rules it must follow. The best fiction strictly follows its own rules. I bring this point up because it's important to set up your own rules when creating a story. Syphon Filter 2 does more than the first, but it doesn't jump the shark. It jumps the missile. Speaking of helicopters, there's one chasing Logan around the mountain and is piloted by Archer, an ex-coworker of Logan. Logan calls him a brown noser, which also addresses an issue I had with the first game. Little details like this flesh out the world. Not much, it's not like the characters have real growth or anything, but hey, backstories for minor characters ain't too bad for an action game released in 2000. Anyway, the combat, it's good. The shotgun has a satisfying boom sound effect, and can actually hit guys more than 6 inches from you. The enemies all have simple but effective AI that has them going for headshots, using grenades, and using cover. Lastly, the developers placed enemies in interesting locations, so you never know where they'll come from or what weapons they'll use. It ties into the idea that these are the best the US military has to offer. These are guys who got pretty much the same training as Logan. We climb up and make contact with Teresa. She's part of our team and works as an information specialist. She's also a brand new character not featured in the first game, and thanks to her, we tap into the agency's radio. They're planning to cover the mountain in deadly gas in 2 hours, which adds urgency to the situation. As we make our way down the mountain, there's a few instances where you'll fight alongside allies. Like I said in my prior video, games back then didn't really do this that often. Halo was an exception, and even that wouldn't be for another year. Archer finds us in his helicopter, which gives me flashbacks to the first game.
Sorry, Logan. If it were up to me, I'd let you live. Agency orders.
Sure you would.
Cut to Leon, who's been taken captive by the agency and held in an airbase in Colorado not far from Logan's position. She pretends to be unconscious, which probably isn't going to fool anyone in real life, and snaps a doctor's neck. To escape, we have to endure a stealth level. I didn't like these in the first game, and I don't like them now. I won't harp on it too much, but there's a reason developers stopped putting them in their games. We eavesdrop on these guys who have no peripheral vision, then find Fagin, the CEO of Farcom and creator of the Syphon Filter virus. He worked with Black Baton in the previous game and is now infected with the virus. Ironically, he's also killed by it, as the agency pulls the life support off him.
Fine, if you insist. I'll call the New York labs and see if they're ready for us.
I'll go with you.
They're using his plasma as well as Leon's to sell to a rogue Chinese general. We find our gear, an adrenaline shot to perk us up, and contact Teresa. We also find out that the agency has a lab in New York. I think that's called foreshadowing. Okay, so here's the plan. Grab a chopper, pick up Gabe, look cool doing it. Speaking of cool, look at this cute little video monitor. It changes pictures to simulate video. I mean, the PlayStation wasn't powerful, so it's neat seeing the tricks devs came up with. Now this next part is nonsense. A military police officer finds us, but is sympathetic. Although, he doesn't know what's going on, or what these agency guys are up to.
You're right, I don't know who they are, but I know they're not from FEMA. Over here. I overheard 2 of them. They're planning to kill you. You can get out here.
Thanks.
He still lets us go. His assistance is opening a window that wasn't even locked. Why? Why include him? The cutscene just serves no point. It's awkward. Why would he trust us over the agency? He doesn't know either of us, just that the agency is part of the US government. And if you remove him, nothing changes. Anyway, I know I'm being nitpicky, but it's just something I noticed. Cut back to Logan, who jumped over a missile into a rock slide without so much as a scratch. Let's see Snake do that. The most impressive thing that guy's done is beat up the mentally ill. Gabe hands his only weapon over to his buddy while he goes up into the tunnel ahead. There's some supplies in a truck, while our bro will distract the enemies. I also love how the headlights cause a little halo effect on the screen. Again, little touches. Speaking of, I like how you can clearly read the interstate sign as well. The Syphon Filter games have always been some of the best looking PlayStation games. Richard Hamm, the co-creator mentioned earlier in this video, even credits Bubsy's technical showcase as a big reason why Sony greenlit Syphon Filter in the first place. For as poorly as it was reviewed, Bubsy was still technically impressive. It was one of the few PlayStation games to run at 480i, the highest resolution possible for the system. There's even plenty of PS2 games that don't hit that resolution. Worth mentioning, Mr. Hamm never worked on Bubsy. He was brought on for Syphon Filter along with John Garvin, who's the main writer. Generally speaking, Hamm does the game design while Garvin writes. The core IDIC team stayed relatively the same for Syphon Filter 1, 2, and 3, with Hamm leaving after Syphon Filter 3 to work on The Sims 2 for PS2 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. Meanwhile, Garvin would stay with IDIC, eventually leaving after the release of Days Gone. Although he's never explicitly stated it, I get the sense he was a bit tired working with Sony after they pulled the pre-production plug for a Days Gone sequel. I actually recently finished Days Gone, and as much of a fanboy as I am, I can see where they're coming from. While Days Gone was a slight financial success, Ben Studios have always been the ugly duckling of first-party Sony developers. They just can't compete with Naughty Dog, Guerrilla Games, or Insomniac. I've never worked in game development, but I'd have to assume it's a catch-22. They can't compete because they don't have the funding, but they don't have the funding because they can't compete. Sony does seem willing to take risks, but Days Gone was IDIC's chance, and it didn't really hit the mark, so I get it. You can't just burn money. People love to hate suits, but you need them. Creatives having full control gives you games like Star Citizen. With that said, however, it seems like they're working on a new big-budget game, so I'm very curious and hopeful I'm proven wrong. Though the Ben Studios now is vastly different from the one that made Syphon Filter, and even Days Gone. John Garvin's working on a new game with a brand new studio, and Richard Hamm is making YouTube videos about board games. And there's a third guy I should mention, Jeff Ross. He's the designer for Syphon Filter and the director of Days Gone. Right now, it seems like he's taking a break from games. None of the management is with Ben Studios or Sony today. But anyway, Syphon Filter 2, I went on a bit of a tangent, but I think it's good you have some background information. Getting back into the game, we have a flamethrower. SF2 loves to bounce around between stealth level and burning guys alive via an action segment. An APC up ahead is blocking our path, so our buddy Chance, remember him, he acts as a distraction again, pretending to surrender while we sneak by to a nearby maintenance room and kill the lights. It's a bit silly how we have night vision, but the agency guys don't, nor does the APC. These are literally the most highly trained and well-funded soldiers on the planet, and they can't see in the dark? Can you even buy an American APC that doesn't have night vision? I doubt it. As much as I love Syphon Filter, it's not exactly the most well-written series. Funny enough, John Garvin has admitted as much in interviews, stating that a lot of the writing is just an excuse to get the player in a cool location, which at the time is actually good video game writing. It's just got some plot holes to nitpick, which I shall. Also, the night vision effects in this series is just a huge blast of nostalgia for me. The look is iconic. Past the APC is a bridge that's rigged to blow. We gotta deactivate the bombs without getting seen. It's oddly kinda like a platformer, and although it's mandatory stealth, I don't mind it. It's pretty fun. The coolest part is that you can score a double headshot with the silent sniper, which feels awesome. Past the bridge and we find some of our guys being beaten by the agency's goons. But we just gotta wait for the perfect time for another perfect double headshot.
What the hell?
Next up doesn't seem like much, but it's amazing for a PSX game.
Get him!
A truck full of guys pulls up and they spawn behind it. Now, having a truck move like that in a PlayStation game, I think it's really impressive. As we're crossing the bridge, Archer blows it up with his helicopter in a hilarious cutscene that sends us all flying.
I left Chance back in the first tunnel. I want you to get him and get off this mountain.
Will do.
Radio me when you get to a safe place. I'll try to
Look
get...
out!
Back at the airbase, the bad guys are killing their subordinates to remind you that they're bad. There should be a new, stronger word for killing. Something like bad and wrong. Leave a comment if you think of anything. Leon learns that they're going to carpet bomb the mountains Logan's on with gas, killing everyone. So we still have that plan to hijack a helicopter and pick him up. Before that though, we gotta sabotage the plane to buy him some time. Like the moving truck in the prior level, there's an awesome section here where you need to dangle off the side of a moving truck as it passes by guards. It's such a cool little section, it really reminds me of some of the early parts of Metal Gear Solid. We run into another coworker, and Leon ain't taking no shit.
Hello, Holman. Standard silence HK5. Good. Remember me?
Leon, you escaped. Thank God.
Don't even try. I know what you're planning.
No, I was trying to stall them, trying to find a way to get you off the base without...
You just loaded 2 missiles with sarin gas payloads into an F-22 meant for the survivors of a plane crash.
No, that's not true.
You're a liar, Holman. And not a very good one. Another agency course you failed in training? You want to beg for your life? You tell me where Morgan is taking that plasma.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm dying, Holman. Syphon Filter is killing me and I am running out of patience. Where are they taking Fagan's plasma? And where were they planning to take mine?
I can't help you. I don't know where they're taking the plasma. All I know is I was assigned to Morgan. He said we were picking up biomaterials for transport.
Transport to where?
I don't know. I only know that our next assignment was to pick up some discs from the Farcom Exposition Center in New York. They don't tell me anything. I was just following orders.
Yeah? Well, we were all just following orders.
Just make it quick.
You have no idea what you're involved in. Maybe you'll learn if you live long enough. I'd suggest not going into work tomorrow. Your boss might not be as forgiving as I am.
Building on the moving truck sections, next we gotta avoid a spotlight, rig a truck to go into reverse, smashing into a hangar, and distracting the guards. It's such a cool moment, and more reminiscent of something you'd see in a modern game, not one made in 2000. Falcon, one of the agency's top brass, is about to board a helicopter, but we tase his ass and take it for ourselves. The agency has new management since Markinson died in the first game, and like the old boss, the new one wants to sell the Syphon Filter data to a rogue Chinese general. Gabe and his team are standing in the way of that, of course, and it's unlikely neither the US nor Chinese governments even know about this. We fly off as we cut back to Gabe, who's somehow, but unsurprisingly, alive. Not just that, but he's on the back of a flaming train. Archer's still on our trail, but that's okay, because it's time for the best type of level, a train level. Whether it's Uncharted 2, Splinter Cell 2, or Syphon Filter 2, train levels are always my favorite. Gabe's plan is to grab the Syphon Filter data and use it to bargain with the agency for the Syphon Filter vaccine to save Leon. As you run forward, Gabe will automatically jump, but you gotta watch out for guys with flak jackets.
No! Idiot!
The train tracks are coming to an end, but Leon's here to save the day. In a bit of clever writing, Archer blows up an upcoming bridge, but doesn't stick around to shoot down Leon because he doesn't know she's there, and he rushes to the crash site to grab the Syphon Filter data. To be honest, I was expecting a plot hole, but there isn't one. Nice job, SF2. Logan and Leon race to the crash site, and this level is gorgeous. It's like fighting in hell. The inferno in the background, the burnt plane parts and trees, the soundtrack, like most of Syphon Filter's music, is also fantastic. and the guys going full aggro, well, all that just makes this one of the most memorable levels in the game. It's really tough, and you'll need to play smart. All the enemies have flak jackets, use grenades or assault rifles, and they aren't afraid to go for headshots. I don't know how to say it, there's like an air of desperation to the agency soldiers. Their tactics are hyper aggressive, and you can even hear Archer calling out your location to them over the radio.
Red team, he's south of your position. Move in now.
Syphon Filter isn't a series where the characters really have arcs or growth, but the 2D nature of them is still entertaining. Saturday morning cartoon villains they're fun to hate, you know? And that's really what Archer provides. The guy's a prick through and through, which makes shooting his ass as he tries to escape with the data all the more satisfying. We lose contact with Chance and the rest of our guys on the mountain, so assumed KIA at the moment. Meanwhile, the agency has listed us as terrorists, blaming us for the plane being shot down, as well as the subway bombing in the first game. While we have the SF data, it's encrypted. Both us and the agency believe Fagin, the Farmcom CEO, hid it in the convention center, which is a revisit from the first game. By the way, remember when games came on multiple discs? Well, SF2 is one of them. Also like the first game, Gabe changes clothes depending on the level, which I still love. Speaking of the last game, the music is as good, if not better. So many bangers, as the kids say. While this is a stealth level, it's not mandatory. You can shoot your way out if spotted. Well, the agency guys you can kill, but not the military MPs, which are also scattered around. You can deal with them non-lethally with a tranquilizer or taser. It's also not a complete retread of the first game, even though it's recycled. The level's been altered a bit with the help of the government boxes placed everywhere. Also, it's at night. It's nostalgic without being repetitive. Leon finds out they're planning on blowing up the expo center. Why? I don't know, it's cool, I guess. This level's cool figuratively and literally. Look at these vents. Why? They're huge. The explosives are placed in the China exhibit along with Morgan. I mean, he's there. He's not placed there. Like, he's not an exhibit, if that makes sense. He's there.
You're cut off, Morgan. It's just you and me.
Give yourself up, Logan. Stevens wants you to come in. He wants to sit down and discuss things with you and Leon Zing.
I know what Stevens wants. You had her and you lost her. You always were second-rate, Morgan.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anyway, who's Morgan? Well, he's the second in command to the agency, whom Logan calls second-rate. Get it? Because he's second in command, second-rate, never mind. Which means boss battle. Syphon Filter has never had great boss battles, and this one is really no exception. He has a grenade launcher, and you're supposed to run around the room, avoiding his shots, but that'll get you killed like 9 out of 10 times. What you really should do is just spam headshots as soon as you load in, which ends the boss fight in under a second. Great for speedrunning, but maybe a bit anticlimactic. We grab the encryption discs and bounce. Helping us is a new character, Lawrence Mujari. He has a safe house we're using, and like Teresa, he's a new character, but he'll play a big role in the series. So while we have the data discs, they're not all here. Anyway, Leon has a contact who might know more, a Russian general she worked alongside with in Afghanistan. So it's off to Moscow. The general's a little out of place at this nightclub, but a man's gotta dance. An attempt is made on his life by none other than Mara Aramov. She survived getting shot in the head, twice, and now she's back for more. Leon saves the general just as explosions begin tearing this place apart. The club's also infested with Russian mercenaries, which is fine by me as we swap to Leon. These guys will pop out from cover, which I don't think was a mechanic in the first game. I don't remember it anyway. And although the first game did have destructible items in the levels, I felt they were rarely present. Not here though, glass bottles and windows shatter in these intense firefights. It doesn't seem like much until you're actually playing the game. It adds a lot of excitement. These are tense battles since it doesn't take much to kill or be killed. And I want to give props because Syphon Filter is a series that can do both long and short range combat really well. The cops arrive, so the front door is a no-go.
Gabe, Russian militia's shown up. They're blocking my way out and I'm going to lose Gregorov if I don't get outside. I can't open fire on these guys, they're just cops doing their job. I need backup here.
We enter deeper into the club and escape via a window. Mara tries to kidnap the general, but he makes a run for it. So now we have this complicated situation where we're chasing this general named Gregorov while Mara and her goons are trying to kill him, and meanwhile we also have the cops who are trying to apprehend or kill us all. It's not just peak Syphon Filter, but peak spy thriller. These complicated situations are so much fun and make you curious to see how they'll turn out. It's not just the story context either, but the gameplay and level too. We can blast these guys away, but we need to be careful of our targets. The level, meanwhile, is a few city streets with set pieces spread around. It's a great example of Syphon Filter at its best. I could be misremembering, but I don't think PS1 games were ever this complex, and I distinctly remember it being one of the reasons I love not just Syphon Filter, but Metal Gear and Final Fantasy Tactics as well. Games that had mechanics to explore, a story to get lost in, and they took themselves seriously despite it being pretty wacky. Don't get me wrong, I love mindless fun, but there was no shortage of that back in the 90s and early 2000s. Games that, for lack of a better word, seemed grown up were harder to come by. Some people said Syphon Filter was inspired by Metal Gear Solid, but I want to mention here that that's actually not true. There's never been any evidence for it, and the dates don't line up, because IDEC would have had less than 5 months to get inspired by the game, and then make an entirely new game based on it and release it. Plus, everyone at IDEC who's ever been there has refuted this claim when asked. One of the designers was influenced by GoldenEye, which Garvin references in an interview with Sony, but funny enough, Syphon Filter has no real inspiration, as there weren't any games like it at the time. The team just wanted to make a spy game. They didn't know what it'd look like or how it'd play. The only definitives they started with was that it would be a spy action game and the name Syphon Filter, which is itself nonsense.
We had actually started working on Syphon Filter before we had ever heard of like Metal Gear Solid.
Metal Gear was, came out probably 4 or 5 months before we did.
So the big game that had been out before us was GoldenEye.
And obviously GoldenEye was a sort of an influence.
And super awesome game. And that was really kind of the only one.
I think that we carved out a niche that wasn't Metal Gear, wasn't James Bond, was something distinctly unique.
Which brings me to my final point on the specific topic. John Garvin is not the best writer. I think he'd be the first to tell you that. But games writing is not novel writing. John, because we're on a first name basis now, wrote a game story that took itself seriously and treated the player like an adult. This was during a time when you simply didn't do that outside of visual novels. He doesn't get all the credit though. The game asks you to follow the story while also tying it into the gameplay. The story is not just a framing device. You must kill those enemies, but not these enemies, for specific plot reasons. The two play off one another. They need each other. Combine that with the flow of the game, it's strange but still fantastic gameplay that to this very day in 2024 now I guess, has not been replicated, as well as the amazing soundtrack, and you have lightning in a bottle. You can say the gameplay wouldn't be palatable to modern audiences, or spy thrillers aren't in vogue, sure, those are fine arguments, but you can't argue against Syphon Filter's uniqueness. It's understandable there's not a modern entry in the series, but it's still sad its legacy has been largely forgotten, because for better or worse, there's nothing else like it. Honestly, I'm just talking about this stuff as it comes to my mind, and sometimes something sparks an opinion I have, then I ramble about it and it digs up more and more. I should probably edit my thoughts better or structure a video, but I don't know. I think it's more fun this way, more genuine anyway. Which brings me to a beautiful little cap on my point, because after escaping the nightclub, we're still chasing the Russian general in Russian city streets. We're led into an alleyway just as this happens. Little set pieces bring this game to life, and I just love how it keeps you on your toes. It's straight out of a Mission Impossible or James Bond movie. This level is full of these events. Many games at this time would have the same basic mechanics for the first level, then move a couple stuff around, bring up the difficulty a tiny bit, and repeat until the game's long enough to be called complete. The best PlayStation games didn't do this. They introduced new mechanics to the players a quarter, halfway through, and towards the end of the game. The experience was fresh the entire way through. Syphon Filter is of course one example, but you can see this in Ape Escape and Castlevania too. Of course you get new tools to play around with, but these tools also affect how you interact with the gameplay. In turn, the game demands more from you. This demanding more from you is what modern games are so often missing. Intentionally so, as developers want games to appeal to the broadest group of people possible. If the first hour of a game is almost indistinguishable from the last, then you're not playing a video game, you're just consuming content. Content is different from an experience, but that's another rant for another day. We corner Gregorov, the Russian general, in a nearby park, but we need him alive. Unlike previous enemies who we've killed, snuck, or run past, we need to tase Gregorov, but we only have this crappy close-range taser. Well, the game has a lighting and detection system, and they play off each other, so you can hide in the darkness. Now, it's no Splinter Cell, but it is there. So if you shoot out the lights, he has a much harder time seeing and hitting you. Or we think it's Gregorov until this happens.
Leon, are you there?
Gabe, where have you been? Are you all right?
We're fine.
We may lose the deductible on our rental, though.
I'm in the park, at the Cossack statue. I've got Gregorov.
On the way.
Gabe, I know why Gregorov's been acting so strange.
Why's that?
Miss Lian Zing, I'm Vladimir Nedobry of the SVR. I'm afraid you must come with us.
But this isn't who you think it is. This isn't Yuri Gregorov. He's an imposter.
Yes, we know.
The real Gregorov is being held in a gulag in Siberia. He's scheduled for execution tomorrow, so we have a stealth mission with a time limit. The level starts with an hour to spare, which is somewhat of a cop-out, as he's being taken to be executed ahead of schedule. We flip the power, and it's go time.
Идите посмотрите, что случилось с электричеством.
Там заваруха! Сваливать надо!
One of my favorite tracks in the game plays, and stealth is off.
Running on emergency power now, and the execution stalled. But a riot's broken out.
Good. Perfect number to get Gregorov out of there. Sounds like you're under fire.
I'm all right.
This level is one of the best. The circumstances lend itself to a really fun sense of urgency and excitement, and the level is a prison. But we're running inside, outside, in the sewers, there's just a ton of variety. We bust out Gregorov, and I run into a pretty hilarious glitch. Like the Moscow level, the prison escape is just fantastic. SF2 has very, very few mediocre levels, and even that's as bad as it gets. All these levels feel so alive, with multiple factions fighting each other while you're stuck in the thick of it trying to accomplish some objective or just get out alive. It does action set pieces better than a lot of action movies. They remind me of the best Call of Duty levels, memorable set pieces that are so much fun to play and have you dying to see how you'll get out of the situation. The game, of course, isn't just go, go, go. It takes moments to breathe and invoke intrigue, but when it hits the gas, you can't look away. Now with Gregorov safe, we head back to the safe house. Leon's out of commission as the virus progresses, and we're running out of time. Logan calls Stevens, the head of the agency, to strike a deal. Not only do the data disks in Logan's possession contain the Syphon Filter information, but also the identities of everyone at the agency. Fagin, the Farcom CEO who died earlier in the game, well, he made copies as a backup when he was dealing with the last head of the agency. Logan threatens to make this information public in a great character moment.
But I know that you are a loyal agent who wants to do the right thing for your country. You're not going to do anything that will jeopardize national security.
Wrong, Stevens. What I am is a tired, angry fugitive whose partner is dying. Don't try me.
What do you want?
An even trade. Leon's vaccine for the discs.
Logan sets up a trade with the agency, the data disks for the Syphon Filter cure. He'll use himself as collateral, while his team administers the cure to Leon. If she's cured, he'll hand over the discs. Logan knows the agency will try to screw this up, so he's going on to steal the cure himself. There's a tender character moment here, and I want to give some more props, as the game could have easily turned this into a bad love story.
There is nothing more we can do for her until we have the vaccine. Time is running out, I'm afraid.
You two have been through a lot together. I can tell you feel something for her.
But They didn't. Leon is never presented as a love interest. She's treated strictly as a friend and spy partner to Logan, which is refreshing. They could have diminished her character by making her a princess that needs to be rescued, but they didn't. She saves Logan's ass a few times throughout the series, and Logan hers.
Logan.
Stevens.
This is Dr. Weisinger, our chief medical officer and biologist. She will be preparing the vaccine.
You'll never see the vaccine, but let me show you how to give an injection. First, you immobilize the arm, and
You'll
then
never
inject.
find her, Stevens.
Just as he predicted, the agency betrays Logan within 2 seconds of meeting him. He sneaks in a poison via a hollow tooth. Hold your breath, bite it to release the gas, which when mixed with oxygen creates a poisonous gas, then you exhale it into someone's face. So we grab the doctor's clothes and begin our infiltration. As long as you don't get too close to anyone, they won't see through the disguise. And if you needed even more proof that the agency are bad dudes, well, they're experimenting on living people. We also find our squad from the Colorado mountains. A few of them are alive and are being experimented on, including Chance.
What the hell kind of place is this, Gabe?
There's no time. I have a chopper outside a half-mile away. Here are its coordinates. Take this and get to the security room and free Ramirez. Get up to the street any way you can and wait for me at the chopper.
Thanks, Logan. You saved my ass again.
Just move.
We also take the cure from Weisinger, the female scientist in charge of Syphon Filter's development. She escapes, but we have the cure. We also get our equipment back, which is good because the agency is now sending in the death squad.
These guys are wearing full armor. I can't hit them.
That's bad.
These guys are bulletproof, but they can be killed with the grenade launcher. We avoid them and escape the facility and out into the New York City streets. Stevens, of course, is pissed, and it's very satisfying.
I want this place shut down. Do not, I repeat, do not let Logan out of here.
Logan will be stopped, even if I have to do it myself.
While we can kill the agency operatives, we can't harm the cops. They've been lied to and told we're a terrorist. This is a neat level that has you running around some empty city streets. I think because it's a slum section of New York, plus at nighttime and raining, I guess the implication is that it's deserted.
Teresa, we're the...
Drop your gun, Logan. You don't want to see an innocent cop's brain splattered all over the walls, do you?
Stevens.
Now.
Don't do it. He's gonna kill me anyway.
So now we murder innocent police officers?
You should have listened to her, Logan.
Teresa meets up with us in the sewers to help us escape. Looks like we couldn't escape this game without a sewer level. I swear these things must have been mandatory by Sony if you wanted to make a game for their system. Anyway, we escape and make our way to a parking garage. Stevens is there to meet us. At this point, I feel like we're bullying this poor boomer. We take out the rest of his men. As Teresa chases him down with an automatic shotgun. Hilariously, he finally surrenders until we take out the knife, our shitty knife from the very start of the game, and finish him.
You're too late. The vaccine, she's dead.
You're wrong, Stevens. I have the vaccine. I've saved my partner, and you're just another dead agent.
Well, that's it. The end of the agency.
Somehow I doubt it. Come on, let's get this vaccine to Leon.
If you haven't played Syphon Filter 2 and want to experience the full story for yourself, turn off this video now. I don't want to spoil something huge that's about to happen. You can beat the game in about 2 or 3 sittings, and it's what I'd recommend you do if this has been at all interesting to you. Alright, so with the spoiler warning out of the way, we head up to the chopper for an evac just as this happens.
What the hell? Who started the chopper? Gabe, look out!
Teresa!
I'm wearing full body armor, Gabe. You can't hurt me.
Chance.
You don't sound surprised.
I'm not. All the time in Colorado, the agency seemed to know what I was doing before I did. Our route down the mountain, my direction on the highway, the train, and the labs. You were dressed in a hospital gown so they could lock me up with you in case the drugs didn't work.
No secrets from old friends.
When the transport plane arrived, I sent you up to secure it, and Leon got captured. You turned her over to them.
I told him where she was and secured the test subject for transport. Just doing my job, Logan, that's all. My job.
Your job? Men under your command trusted you with their lives.
I eliminated expendable targets. Line of duty as per my orders.
I know the rhetoric. It doesn't change what you are.
What we are, Logan. How many men did you kill to get here? All of them, they were just doing their jobs. Do they deserve to die? I'm just doing what I was trained to do.
Yeah? So am I. Enough of this. Get that out of my face. Ugh.
Let's dance!
What an awesome moment. Chance, one of the first named characters we meet, was a double agent the entire time. It's a spy game, of course someone's a double agent, but I just never thought of it. You wouldn't think a dumb action game would have such a cool and sensible twist up its sleeve, but here we are. In my opinion, this twist brings the game's story up from good to great. Chance is fully armored, and even the grenade launcher won't kill him, but it does push him back a bit, as does the automatic shotgun we got off from Teresa's body. With these, we can push Chance's betraying ass into our helicopter blades and Indiana Jones this loser. But it's a hollow victory, as Teresa is dead, died helping us when she didn't even need to.
Teresa, I'm sorry.
We make the agency's existence known to the American public, as the politicians scramble to figure out what they are and how they've been operating outside the usual chain of command. Suffice to say, there's a lot of egg on the American government's face right now. While the agency has been acting without the knowledge of the Department of Defense and larger political apparatus, the fact that an agency could have so many secrets is, well, it's cause for huge concern. On the plus side, our names have been cleared, and Logan and Leon are no longer wanted. Leon makes a full recovery, while Logan gives her a Solid Snake-esque speech about doing what's right.
She gave her life for mine. How can I live with that?
The same way I will. By surviving. By not giving up. By fighting for what you believe in. It's not over yet.
It's a little undercut by the soundtrack that kicks in, but whatever, it's still cool. And we finally have rolling credits, ending the story of SF2. Or so we thought. A post-credit scene shows the Secretary of State leaving a helicopter with Mara Aramov, as they vaguely discuss plans for a sequel.
We will finish this operation another day.
When the administration falls, as the Secretary of State, you will become president. We could have ended it here.
Perhaps, but I am not finished with him yet. I have something else in mind for Gabriel Logan.
Mara laughs as the scene fades to black. I said everything I wanted to say in this video, so I'll keep this brief. Syphon Filter 2 is almost the perfect sequel. It takes much of what worked in the first game and improves on it, while disregarding much of what didn't. Though not everything, which I think keeps it from being perfect.
Syphon Filter is killing me, and I am running out of patience.
Syphon Filter 3 marked the end of the series. Sure, there was the online-focused Omega strain and the PSP games that were eventually ported to PS2, but none of these returned Syphon Filter to its past success, which is why the series joined SOCOM and Ape Escape as dead Sony franchises. But was it deserved? Is it really that bad? And how has it aged? So Syphon Filter 3 came out in late 2001, a full year after the PlayStation 2's release. This is one of the reasons it was judged more harshly than the prior two games. Reviews were the lowest of the trilogy. The gaming industry was innovating, but was the Syphon Filter series? The story kicks off with a remade cutscene of the end of the second game. It's Teresa's funeral and ew. The PlayStation is capable of mind-boggling effects, but this is just gross. Syphon Filter 3 has some of the ugliest early 2000s CGI I've seen. Syphon Filter 1 and 2 had animated faces over blocky-headed character models. It was charming. Here, it's more technically impressive, sure, but it's also uglier. I remember not liking it even at the time, and it's aged worse than the prior two games because of it. I think it's a desperate jump to realism and sacrificing art style to do it. I'd prefer a slightly more cartoony Syphon Filter. I'm also not a fan of Logan's redesign. Leon's still fairly similar to the early games, so it's whatever, but Logan this face ain't doing it. The story itself starts off in the most exciting place on the planet, the US Senate floor. Oh, sorry. Anyway, Logan's being grilled by the Secretary of State, who we, the audience, know plans on betraying Logan and have the President, Vice President, and Senate President killed so he can become the President. Honestly, it's a really dumb plan. The Secretary of State is the fourth in line to the presidency. How are you killing off 3 of the most powerful people on the planet? So what, you can be president for like 2 years? Do you have another plan to become dictator after that? I don't know, it's a wacky story. SF1 and 2 were a little silly, sure, but still believable. SF3 is less Tom Clancy, more dusty book on a shelf at Goodwill. As each member recounts the events to Secretary of State Haddon, you'll play as that character. This does have the benefit of fleshing out the characters' backstories and could be a fun distraction. But it's a bit annoying when you wanted a mainline SF game that pushed the story further in a significant way. Especially when the PS2 was out and had a bunch of new exciting games for it. My thoughts? Well, if you're returning to Syphon Filter, why do it on the PS1? And more than that, why a dusty old story about the past? That's not exciting. I think this could have worked as a side game or any other time than when the greatest console of all time was just released. Speaking of old and dusty, the gameplay is so similar to the prior 2 games that besides the levels, you could never tell it was a third in the series. Same controls, abilities, UI, everything. Giant Bomb's review at the time said, quote, Syphon Filter 3 looks, plays, and feels more like an expansion pack for the previous games than a true sequel, end quote. Which even today still holds true. But it's not just the gameplay. The graphics, sound effects, and structure all remain unchanged. But it's actually even worse than that, because the changes that were made were for the worst. In my prior 2 videos, I raved about the music. It's so good in Syphon Filter 1 and 2, but here in 3, well, gone are the tense rock tracks that evoke mystery and suspense. It's been replaced with this. The majority of these tracks are forgettable at best, and I don't even understand it. It's the same composer for all 3 games, which sounds like an easy excuse, just, oh, it must be his fault, blame him. But there are a million different reasons why it could be this way. Maybe he was rushed, maybe it's the direction he was given, maybe some other random reason. I tried to look into it, but couldn't find any solid information, so it'll have to remain a mystery for now. So Haddon is grilling Logan, asking him under oath if he's ever assassinated a world leader. Logan says no, then the game cuts to him assassinating a world leader. Shihao, the rogue Chinese general from the second game, is Logan's target. So we flash back 2 weeks ago in Tokyo. Shihao is planning on using Syphon Filter to help him overthrow the Chinese government. He's also meeting with a Japanese terrorist group called the JRA to help him. Logan's going to execute the general, along with his top lieutenants. Logan shows off his impressive Japanese skills,
Arigato,
and heads up to his floor.
ひどい天気ですね。本当にひどい。
He's so rude. Logan gets the key for room 413, so we as the player have to find the room ourselves. It's such a small thing, but forcing the player to pay attention to the dialogue so that we know what to do next is great. I love when games expect the player to pay attention. It's why Morrowind is so beloved. Anyway, this room contains a sniper rifle we can use to take out the targets. Shihao's room is also audio bugged, so we learn that Mara Aramov is involved, because of course she is. Anyway, I don't like this level. Let's compare the first level of the 3 Syphon Filter games. The first game opens with an action-packed firefight in the streets of DC. It involves enemies, allies, and yourself. You can go down into the subway, the restaurant, or the alleyway. The choice is up to you, which makes it feel open. The second game begins with parachuting down onto a mountain. You only have one place to go, but the mountain itself is fairly open as you track down your objectives. And then you got the third game, which opens with you locked in a tiny hotel room, playing a glorified shooting gallery with a sniper. It's such a drab way to open a game. This is the opening level, which should be one of, if not the best level of your game. It needs to grab you and convince you to keep playing. The second issue is that it goes on for way too long. Almost 2 minutes doesn't sound like much, but it really feels slow when it's the same copy-pasted enemies who run to the exact same locations. On the plus side, the taser's back. The JRA takes a few hostages in the hotel. We save them and Leon picks us up. Cut to Logan and Leon in Costa Rica, investigating Black Baton's involvement in the area. An agent is MIA, so in we go. Now this is pretty impressive from a graphic standpoint. You can hear the bugs in the background, the thick foliage everywhere, and Logan, again, changes clothes depending on the level. No, I will not stop mentioning it because I love it. Anyway, this level does a great job on feeling bigger than it actually is. There's automated turrets spread around too, which can be disabled with grenades. The prior games had grenades too, but it didn't use them all that often, so it's nice to see them required here. You find the agent just as he's executed. This is a drug plantation being used by Black Baton, but we're unsure why. We already know what Black Baton tried doing, and what happened to Logan, Leon, and Romer, who's Black Baton's leader. So why are we here? What's the point of this level from a story perspective? It doesn't show Logan or any of the characters in a new light. It's just filler content, a game level just because. Now, I'd give a pass if the level was good, but it's not. It's a circle you can run a loop in. Around this loop are a few plant samples you need to collect. Most are burning as Romer is covering his tracks since he knows we're here. You gotta run around the loop collecting them. It's not fun, it's not mentally stimulating, it's just boring. I feel like a hamster. I'm literally running in circles. Why is this the second level? Why is any of this any level? Gimme out. So it's not enough to collect the samples. You also have to find the plant sample kit. Great, I love hunting for a box in the forest in my video games, then collecting plants. It is so much fun. If you didn't already, the dislike button is on the bottom right, I believe, on your screen. If you're a big Syphon Filter 3 fan, you can hit that probably, just as a heads up. Don't want to hit it yet? Then let's discuss voice acting. I don't know why or what happened, but it feels like David Hayter all over again.
So what's our next move?
We wait for the next viral outbreak. It won't be long.
What is this delivery?
We wait for the next viral outbreak.
Do the line again. Logan's voiced by John Chacon, a voice actor who has no credits outside the Syphon Filter series, and this would be his final Syphon Filter game, as Logan's voice actor would change in the next game. Why? Well, there's two stories given. One, given by the man himself, claims a payment dispute. John gave an online interview in 2020, and rather than me explain it, I'll have him give his side of the story in his own words.
There was a discrepancy over some money. They had asked me to come in, and on the third one, we had to do some pickup lines, and I was there for like 5 or 6 minutes, and that was it. Whoever was the engineer at that time, he just had me fill out a time card, and it was a minimum of like 4 hours, and I felt bad taking 4 hours for 5 minutes. I've been told him, don't worry about it, forget it, you know, it's 5 minutes, who cares? And he said, no, if you come in here, you got to get paid. And they wouldn't, even through the argument, I told them, well, just pay me for the 5 minutes, I'm good with that. What is it, $20? And nope, they refused. Sony refused, and it's like, you know what, guys? I'm going to take you to the labor commissioner to keep this up, and the actors union. So I guess after that, they just didn't want to use me anymore.
This story kinda confuses me. Why would you threaten to get your union involved if a company is trying to pay you more than what you think you're worth? If I were to steelman his story, I'd say he didn't realize how serious a corporation like Sony would take his union threat. But yeah, anyway, if you're a young professional out there watching this, don't threaten your workplace with your union. Just talk to your union instead. Or just take the money. So what's the other story? Well, in a different online interview, John Garvin, lead writer and artist of the Syphon Filter series, recounts a different reason. Again, here's the story in his own words.
Oh, so real quick to answer his question about Chacon.
Yeah.
So dude, Chacon was awesome dude, but he was literally, this was a guy that they brought in off the street. He was a truck driver dude in the Bay Area,
right,
if I remember correctly. and he had the perfect voice for it, but but it was really, really hard on his voice to get down into that gravelly Gabe Logan register, and it was not his natural voice. He could totally do it.
Right.
And he wasn't SAG.
Regardless of who you believe, I do think Logan's voice acting is noticeably worse in 3. Maybe a 4th game with his voice would have been okay, but it ain't looking good. The first 3 Syphon Filter games didn't use professional voice actors, including John Chacon. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. In interviews, you can tell he loves the series and poured a ton of passion into it. But Sony wanted to move to professionals in the industry. It's a shame, and at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's really at fault. It just kind of is what it is. Getting back to the story, Logan and Leon collect the samples. There's also a pretty neat minefield section here where you have to use the map to avoid mines. Then Logan jumps onto Romer's plane as it's taking off. I'm a sucker for these sorts of segments in games. Fighting inside a moving plane is a classic action movie trope. It's like a train level in games. It's never bad. I know I'm a bit monotone, but I'm not being sarcastic. After killing the crew, Romer comes down, but he's decked out in full body armor. If you run by him into the cockpit, there's a neat little cutscene.
Kill me and this whole plane goes crashing down.
Right.
And the switch to the cargo door. This boss fight would be tense if we didn't already know Romer survives. It's not a biggie, but it gets back to the question as to why this is a prequel. Not just that, but even the boss fight itself is just recycled from the second game. You need to push Romer off the plane using a shotgun, just like how he killed Chance.
Romer had escaped.
Yeah, Romer escaped.
The story shifts to various characters before they met Gabe and joined the agency. First up is Lawrence, who was also introduced in the prior game. His backstory is a little more interesting. We follow him as he fought as a freedom fighter during the 80s in South Africa. Also like the second game, it opens with parachuting in. Whatever, not a huge deal. It's not like the parachuting was utilized much in that game anyway. I should mention, all the characters control identical to Logan, so the changes are simply cosmetic. The levels themselves are nicely designed. This one's a fantastic example. You parachute in, and it's a circular, almost arena-like area with a ton of verticality. Then you head into the tunnels, and it's more closed off. After that, you gotta move into a large space with a couple shacks and guards. You're constantly exploring and fighting in different areas with geography you gotta account for. The prior games, especially 1, did this and more though. Here though, you'll never roll under a closing gate or shoot a sparking switch to turn on an elevator. I miss those little moments. They made it memorable, and this is why the first is my favorite. We find 2 slaves and escort them out, is what I would say if they didn't die. Remember escort missions? All the trauma's coming back to me. Also, why are these guys always falling off cliffs? I'm not complaining, it's just weird. Lawrence channels his inner indie and rides out of the exploding mine in a minecart. Well, on a minecart. It was the PlayStation. It couldn't really do polygons too well, so the minecart's a square. Use your imagination. Lawrence finds a slave driver. That sounds so wrong, but I don't know what to call him. Anyway, he says the miners have been falling ill, so they've been quarantined.
I had found my brothers, but I would not be setting them free.
This was Lawrence's first contact with the virus, of which he took a sample. Cut back to the hearing, he gave a sample to Leon, who in turn had the agency look at it, by which I mean Farcom. It's all coming together. I don't like that this is a prequel, and I stand by that, but I will say it is sometimes nicely written. Things usually connect and make sense. Next up is Leon, who was working as a Chinese agent dispatched to Afghanistan to undermine the Soviet presence there. Unbeknownst to her at the time, Gabe was also operating in the area as an army ranger. Unfortunately, this first meeting is told rather than shown. You never see them meet for the first time, which, come on, isn't that the point of the game? Why do a backstory prequel if you're not going to show the important bits? Anyway, you need to create a diversion for him. Leon's helping Gabe because he saved her from a Soviet ambush, which again was told to us rather than shown. Gee, I don't know, would have been cool to play that. Fighting Soviets as an inexperienced Leon Zing, then Gabe Logan busts in to save our ass. Not only that, but it would have elevated his combat prowess as an agent in the player's eyes. This level might be my favorite in the game. It's varied again with lots of indoor-outdoor environments, underground tunnels, crumbling structures, and the peeking soldiers from 2 are back. Also, they change up the objectives. You're taking pictures of maps, disabling radios, getting blown up. It's a fun time. There's also these snipers up here that you gotta take out. So just like in Lawrence's level, you have way more verticality than in the previous Syphon Filters. Though the series has always done a great job at that. It's not like 1 and 2 were slouching either. Speaking of, these guys are tough. I didn't think this game was too hard, but reading about it after beating it, it looks like a common theme. Everyone says how hard this game is, which I'm not gonna disagree with. I highly recommend either playing it on an emulator or the PlayStation Store version. Both of these have HD and save state support. The game's checkpoint system is fine, but once you start playing with save states, it's really tough to go back. Just ask your boomer PC gaming dad. This level also gives you the A300, a rifle that can both see and shoot through walls. It also punches through flak jackets. The game's image representation is of a Steyr AUG, an old Australian rifle that very much cannot do those things. Syphon Filter always had a huge assortment of weapons, but they're some of the most untrue to real life as games get. Also, it's so damn satisfying. All of these Syphon Filter games, when you shoot someone and it makes a little ping noise, or big ping noise if it's a big boy gun, and then you see the 2D blood come out. If you're making a good shooter, then like 70% of it is making the act of shooting and killing things fun. It seems simple, but a lot of game devs never seem to understand this. But Syphon Filter does, and it's so good because of it. We take out some mortars for Gabe and cut back to Leon.
To help him with murder, assassination, arms dealing, acts of terrorism.
Acts of terrorism.
We never committed acts of terrorism.
We're not terrorists.
I'm almost there. How much time do I have left to plant these explosives?
By the way, how much time is left to plant these explosives? In present day, Gabe's in Ireland, working with MI6 to track down a shipment of the virus on a ship. Aren't all shipments on ships? Isn't that the point? Also, this guy gets shot in the dick a bunch, but seems unbothered. This level's feeling really familiar. Oh, it's another loop. So I know Syphon Filter has always had these levels that sort of loop back in themselves, but it's never been this egregious. It is literally a circle. Yes, I know it's a ship and realistic or whatever, but I'm not playing a Syphon Filter super spy game for its realistic ship interiors. The captain goes down with the ship, meaning 2 in the dome. We plant the explosives, grab the shipping manifest, then do some backtracking back down to the cargo hold. There we defend Maggie Powers' MI6 until we can make our escape. This is where I'd put the cool CGI cutscene of the ship exploding, but the game doesn't have one. Enjoy this shot of a crane instead. Swap back to Leon. One of her assignments with Logan and the agency begins in Aztec ruins in Costa Rica. Black Baton was kidnapping scientists and doctors to work in their labs. And do you see how confusing this is? It's a prequel, but it's not. It goes back in time, but then it skips forward a few years, and then back 5 years, and then back to the present day. Who's president? Where am I? It's such a clusterfuck. The entire point of a prequel or these flashbacks is to see character growth. No one has ever had that in a Syphon Filter game. There is not a single character in this series who goes from being one way to being another. As much as I love this series, it can't write characters. That's okay, it's a dumb stealth action game on a 25-year-old platform. Until it's not. Until we're getting into a time when game stories were maturing. At the start of this video, I mentioned how this game killed the series as we knew it. It was to the point they couldn't do another one for the PS2, hence the online-focused Omega strain. Maybe the PSP games changed that, but we'll see. In my opinion, the first game was lightning in a bottle. 1 year to make a new game in a new genre. It was fantastic. And the second game, again, it took 1 year to make and was still great. I know a lot of people consider the second to be their favorite, but I still like the first the most. Anyway, the third game, another 1 year dev cycle, and it's just the same, but worse. Something needed to drastically change by the time they got here. I wish they could have made 3 a PS2 title. I think the different hardware would have forced the team to really look at what makes a Syphon Filter game, and what new ways can they use the new powerful system. And if you think I'm frustrated now, wait until you hear about this next level. The Aztec level is a bit of a joke in the community. Not only is it tough, but it's so easy to get lost, you have to assume it's intentional. You gotta free some scientists, but to free the scientists, you need to first find them, since they're spread out in this maze level. And second, you need C4 to open up their cells. And there's not even a cool T-Rex to spook ya. That's a Tomb Raider reference. It's funnier if I explain the joke. So after that level just instantly ends and flashes back to the hearing, where Haddon talks about trust. Then flash back, forward, now, flash now, to, I don't know, I'm very confused. Anyway, we go back to Logan and Maggie in Ireland fighting the IRA.
IRA?
They got wind of this shipment somehow. Probably decided they could use the virus for themselves.
Who's their contact?
Don't know, but we've got to get to those trucks before they do.
Let's move.
It seems they want the virus for their own ends, presumably to gas the Brits, or whatever. Listen, I'm American. I don't know what you Europeans are doing over there. This level's full of MI6 operatives who can't protect themselves to save their lives. Literally. Save this guy, save that guy. This one doesn't even carry a gun.
Logan, this is my best locksmith, Jim Russell. He's an MI6 operative, but he can't line up a shot to save his life. He'll be your partner to crack the safe. You must provide cover fire, since he doesn't carry a sidearm.
The flimsy excuse Maggie gives is, he's a very bad shot. Then why is he on the team? After stopping the IRA from getting the virus, we get this cutscene. Oh, I was wrong about the ship cutscene, hell yeah. Flash now? I thought Gabe was in Ireland at present day. Wait, yeah, look at the briefing for the cargo mission with Gabe. While Leon is testifying in Washington in Ireland, so how's Gabe in Ireland and Washington at the same time? I'm so confused. Flash forward, I guess, to Afghanistan, where Gabe's working with Benton, attempting to move arms to the rebels. But then we're attacked by Afghanistans? Aren't Afghanistans the rebels? Also, if your entire convoy was wiped out except for you guys, wouldn't this entire operation get called off? Gabe claims that Benton claims he's CIA and it's a secret operation. But why's Gabe, an Army Ranger, here? Wouldn't that be real bad if the Soviets found out that the US had boots on the ground? And if it was a convoy of trucks carrying arms and supplies, and they were destroyed, all but one, why would you keep going? Aren't the supplies destroyed? Isn't going deeper into enemy territory a terrible idea since you just got screwed even when you had more men and facing lighter resistance? My head hurts. It's funny because my worry when making the first Syphon Filter video was that it would be too hard to follow or explain the plot. Spy thrillers tend to have complicated storylines, and I'm a bit of a layman. But actually, both 1 and 2 were pretty easy to follow. 3, though, I have no clue. And because it majority takes place in the past, I also find it hard to care. Also, this is another escort mission, so fuck me. I don't like this game. If you're not getting lost in Aztec mines, you're escorting trucks in Kabul. There's a tank blocking the path, but Gabe has a plan.
What are you planning? No idea.
Never mind. Gabe grabs Old Faithful, being C4, and blows the tank. I will give credit here though, the game makes you do it yourself, which feels way better than being told when and where to place it. Flash sideways to Leon, who's in Australia, while Gabe's testifying in Washington. I still don't understand how this works. Anyway, the shipping manifest from the ship Logan was on points to this being the shipping origin of the virus. Our goal is to kidnap Dr. Elsa Weisinger. Are we the baddies? We still have the AUG gun, and this level's open, but it's actually open, not a circle. There's a couple objectives, such as sabotage a radio, and you can hit them in any order you wish. This is the type of level design I think this game's largely missing. I dance on a mass grave, and I'm no longer wondering if we're the baddies. We find Elsa, who's been waiting for Aramov. We also free some Australian Aboriginal test subjects. Never thought I'd say that sentence. One of which is hotboxing. Nice. And then we extract with Elsa. We're heading off to a nearby village where the camp commander is about to execute everyone, and we're gonna stop him, because we're the good guys, and all the good guys have the exact same morals and personality, and we never grow or change in any way. You can swap Leon for Logan, for Teresa, for Lawrence, and they're all identical, and would always do whatever the most stereotypical good guy thing is to do at any moment. This is basically a Superman game. The characters are boring. Anyway, this is a stealth level, as you need to get to the test subjects before the camp knows we're there. It's pretty cut and dry. Back to DC, Haddon's not buying our story. Which, hey, can you blame him? Pretty wacky story. Speaking of wacky...
You, Mr. Logan, are guilty of treason, terrorism, and murder.
No, you're wrong. Gabe is telling the truth.
I don't understand. My records seem to indicate... A coroner's report states...
Teresa was injured, not killed.
Teresa bursts into the room, which one is stupid because she's supposed to be dead. Her being alive as a twist completely undermines the second game. You may as well have Chance come back and make him be a secret good guy. It's dumb, I hate it. It's a terrible twist just for the sake of having one. It feels like cheap and manipulative writing. And two, I'm pretty sure you can't just burst into the Capitol anytime you feel... Oh. Time for Teresa's backstory. She joined the ATF and was on assignment to secure a government satellite that went down in Montana, right next to a survivalist militia camp. They're not too friendly to outsiders, let alone the government, so this place is a war zone. We run into some captured militiamen who claim these guys aren't FBI. But before we can think too hard, we're ambushed by armed militiamen. We plant a homing beacon, but witness the government agents killing an unarmed militiaman.
Do what you have to. I won't cooperate with no feds. Kill him.
No, stop.
The game doesn't tell you this, as far as I know, but that was actually Earl Oakton, the patriarch of the militiamen. That's going to be important later. Then a familiar voice finds us.
What should we do with her?
Kill her. She's seen too much.
Wait a minute. What?
Get on your knees. You can get up now.
Gabe can't help us directly, but he gives us a tracker and communication device and heads off to fulfill his mission. Meanwhile, Teresa heads into the compound to retrieve the satellite. It turns out the FBI is actually the NSA. Haddon correctly points out Teresa killed 2 government agents, and she acknowledges it, and then it's just kind of ignored. I don't know, seems like a big deal to me. But also, we know the militia's head family has a father, a teenage son, and a pregnant wife, whom Teresa really wants to save. I'm pretty sure the dozens of militiamen and government agents you've been killing have families too, Teresa. Just saying. This level is actually one of the best in the game, largely because it sticks to what makes a great level. Varied objectives, even if the rationale is a little silly, and also interesting locations that don't overstay their welcome, and nothing makes it frustrating, which after rescuing scientists in Costa Rica is a big plus for me. Also, here's a section where you need to plant the homing beacon Gabe gave us on the NSA commander, all without him knowing. More of this, please. We surrender to the militia, who doesn't seem to be bothered by how many of their buddies we killed. I mean, we kill this guy, that guy, this guy too. Water under the bridge? Bro, it's a fucking tsunami. We got some buddies to fight alongside though. We find the family, and despite our jacket saying we're with the ATF, the son trusts us. If we were here to kill him, he'd already be dead though, so it makes sense. But why doesn't he have a weapon? That's like your entire thing. We fight our way to the pregnant matriarch, as NSA agents are attempting to break their way into the inner sanctum. Inside is Debbie Oakton, who's entered labor, so now we need to find terbutaline, I can't pronounce this.
With terbutaline.
Which is used to help with premature deliveries, and what is this game? What are we doing? I love weird, but this is really weird. Did you ever think in a Syphon Filter game you'd be grabbing this medicine for a militia woman who's going into pregnancy prematurely while you're an ex-ATF agent, all the while the NSA is attempting to kill you both? That's a mouthful. And don't misunderstand, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, what the hell? Anyway, I kinda dig this. You gotta escort her out while these guys are shooting at both of you, and it's something else. I shoot her in the head out of morbid curiosity. Games don't let you kill kids, but goddamn you can. That's messed up. I shot a pregnant woman in the face. That's another thing I thought I'd never say. Can Turbuchilin fix that? We make it to the escape tunnel and radio Logan for pickup.
Logan, do you read me?
I read you.
I've got the Oaktons. I need a pickup if you can manage it.
I think I can take care of that.
Teresa explains she's been following Mara Aramov since Teresa faked her death. Teresa found Aramov meeting with Haddon, and in come the Special Prosecutor Office agents, working with Gabe and his team to arrest Haddon. The jig's up. Jesus Christ! She kills Haddon and our nameless officers, RIP, and apparently planted viral bombs throughout the capital. The CBDC is back, and oh, it's a reunion. That's cute. They don't have the iconic look from the first game, though. Lame. The bombs are controlled by a code that Lawrence thinks is in Haddon's office. There's too many to individually defuse, so down we go. We find the code and neutralize the bombs, but Mara's hijacking a subway car to escape. Aw, it's a second reunion. I'm having so much deja vu. Lawrence says we need to stop her because she has one bomb left. If we don't, the entire city will be poisoned. Okay, so then why use 20 bombs if one's just as effective? Whatever. Another train level, it's good, like all train levels are. We rescue some hostages, including a senator.
You almost got me killed! Expect a call from my lawyer.
Excuse me? Mara takes a hostage while hiding behind bulletproof glass. This took me a little bit to figure out, but you can climb above the car and then use the good old Steyr AUG to shoot through the walls. And of course she survives the headshot somehow.
Finish it. It's already over, Mara.
Gabe's like Batman at this point. Literally the next cutscene, she escapes custody again.
Mara's gone. Apparently security didn't see anything. Cameras have been wiped.
Figures.
Gabe, please. You make me sound crazy, but just kill her. Anyway, Gabe is promoted to chief of the agency and is tasked with rebuilding it. Teresa sure is very flowy. Syphon Filter has been defeated and we get a full pull-away shot, fade to credits. But wait, there's a final cutscene.
If you want to go forward, you press forward. If you want to go back, you go back.
How'd this footage get in here?
Right, go down, go up. And it's Bluetooth.
The game ends in the most Syphon Filter way possible. I both love and hate it. It's a good ending to a game I didn't enjoy playing. But wait, there's more. There's also a 2-player versus mode, as well as some challenge missions you can play single player. You can even play as different characters in different scenarios and using levels from the other games. It's a really awesome addition that wasn't required. Ah, the memories. SF3 has some big highs, but lots of low lows. It's certainly the weakest of the three. My own personal ranking goes 1, 2, not far behind, then 3, pretty far behind. If we disagree, I hope I did a good job backing up my points at the very least. Syphon Filter The Omega Strain is the worst Syphon Filter game I've played, so far.
I feel like we have no idea what we're doing.
It was the first time the series touched the PS2, but by this time we had Ratchet & Clank, SOCOM, Tony Hawk. Gabe was old news by this point. Now, that's not to say the series still didn't have its fans. While SF was always a third-person shooter, this game would be an online-only, cooperative shooter. Nowadays, that sounds like just asking for fan backlash.
Do you guys not have phones? Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
But at the time, it was an interesting proposal. Always online didn't have the negative connotation it does now. The servers are obviously shut down, so how am I playing an always online multiplayer-only game? Well, you can thank Sony for that. Towards the end of development, the devs were forced by Sony to include a single-player option. So if it feels tacked on, that's because it is. This is a game that's really meant for multiplayer, and for that, I have to apologize. I only played single-player. Why? Well, there are unofficial servers up, and while mine worked, my friends did not. Though this has some unique benefits. I pretty much played this game in the worst possible way, so if you play it, your experience can only be better than mine. Why is it meant for online? Well, I'll get to that in a bit. It's also worth noting I did play a lot of this online at the time, as I've always been a Syphon Filter fan through the years. After SF3, Gabe killed a ton of powerful people, many in government positions, but funny enough, most of the people died because of him, but not directly by his hands. Secretary of State Haddon and his previous boss come to mind. Now, Gabe has been made head of the agency he used to work for. He works under the presidency, snuffing out Syphon Filter and other biological threats as they appear. He's a bit like Chris Redfield in Resident Evil. He also fills out new agency management with Leon and friends, as well as you, the player. That's because you don't play as Gabe Logan in this game, but rather you create your own character. This is something many games have tried over the years, and it's always met negatively. Games like Tenchu Z and Enter the Matrix come to mind. Now, I kinda like it, but I'm a bit of a weirdo. I also like voice protagonists in RPGs.
Yeah, not bad.
Not Fallout 4, that was really bad. I mean more like Alpha Protocol. Anyway, the game opens in Switzerland, with Mara Aramov fully alive and flourishing, thanks Gabe, talking with a shadowy man with a ponytail who's threatening her. It seems they're making deals regarding Syphon Filter. Cut to the new agency, or IPCA, in Berlin. This new agency is now headed by Gabe, his new team, and a few new characters. Everyone's gearing up and heading out as a new threat has emerged. People around the world are getting sick. It's stumping doctors, and Gabe and crew, and you, are gonna get to the bottom of it. The cutscene ends with a speech by Gabe, and his redesign is leagues better than his SF3 look.
Each of you were handpicked to join this team. This threat is growing. We're the only ones who have a chance to stop it. I'm counting on you. Thanks.
The main menu's also been given a facelift, which I'm a little sad about. It's alright, and better than the original games, as those were basically just 007 ripoffs, but still, they're nostalgic. After starting a new game, you need to create your agent. You don't have as many options up front, but you will as you complete objectives and play through the game. That's the thing about Omega Strain, there are so many unlocks. I'll get to that soon, but first I want to talk about the character creator. It is super solid. We have so many different faces, face shapes, man or woman, 3 different body builds, shirts, pants, head, hair, facial hair, and even eye color. I promise you, you will never notice a character's eye color while playing. After creating our agent, we get to see the level select. And there's no escaping it. I half joked in prior videos that most of the bad Syphon Filter levels are circles. Now the level select itself is a circle. All these levels are locked, but that's not all that's locked. You also have an insane amount of unlockables. Most, but not all of these are going to be guns. At the time, Syphon Filter the Omega Strain might have had the most real-world weapons of any video game. There's so many pistols, rifles, shotguns, a flamethrower, submachine guns, frag grenades, gas grenades, smoke grenades, a grenade launcher, like 3 different knives, ninja stars, and yes, of course, the taser. There's actually 2. One has a shorter range, but the other has unlimited range. The Internet Movie Firearm Database lists all these guns, and I counted 96 in total. Some of the other unlocks that aren't guns include things like armor, health, ammo, stuff like that. It's kind of like an RPG in that way. I really recommend reading through the Internet Movie Firearm Database list just to see them trash talk how the guns are represented in-game. They're nothing like their real-life counterparts. Some of the sights are missing from the guns, the descriptions make no sense, and the game does the classic mistaking clips for magazines. Almost every gun is wrong in some way. It's actually really funny. I would guess that one of the designers or coders worked on the guns and not someone who has any familiarity with actual firearms. Anyway, as we start into the first level, it's the training center. Imani Gray will be our handler, and she's a new character. She'll lead us through the training as well as the first few levels. But before we begin, we need to choose our starting equipment. You have a back slot for larger weapons, a sidearm, auxiliary for submachine guns, a grenade slot, and a melee slot. You can be totally decked out if you want to be. Right now, we only have the starter pistol and a stun rod. You strafe with L2 and R2, circle is roll, hold X, not cross, to crouch, square to fire, R1 to lock on, L1 to aim in first person, and then you can use L1 and R1 to lean while in first person, R3 to reload, D-pad left for your map, right for your flashlight. You can hold right to swap to night vision, start is your PDA, and select to swap weapons. This game uses the same weapon swap system as the prior games, and it's still really bad. You'll be fumbling to get the weapon you need while in firefights, so be careful with that. I found it really frustrating. It's been 5 years, so you'd think they'd figure something out, but I guess not. As you go through the training, you'll learn how to fire both in first and third person, and the tutorial is not joking when they say that rapid shooting causes a loss in accuracy. Firing in this game is super fickle. It does carry over the series' iconic target-based combat, but there's been some substantial changes. For one, the target bar that used to be on the top right is gone. Replacing it is a circle around enemies that changes colors depending on your own likelihood to hit the target. I think it's a noticeable improvement, but it does have some issues. I think it's difficult to discern between the 3 color stages. So for example, there's red, yellow, and green, but they're in a gradient. A guaranteed hit is a deep green, but not every green is a guaranteed hit, so it's tough to know if your shot will actually land. After a while, you'll get used to it with timing, but it's not a great solution. And if you're at all colorblind, then I think it's really bad and might be difficult to play. Maybe there's a better way, but the way I've always played SF is to crouch, wait for the green bar, and then fire. You'll never hit anything if you fire while running. Alternatively, if the enemy is standing still, your character will auto-aim. You can blind fire in this way, or even better, you can snap to first person and then the camera will immediately be placed on the enemy. I'm not sure if the prior games did this, but if you do know, then leave a comment letting me know. Now, the main issue with this style of combat is, holy crap, I'm bored 10 hours in. This isn't a short game, and the combat just does not have the staying power to justify its length. It's basically tab targeting from an MMO, without the abilities. It's incredibly dull, which is fine for a shorter game like the first 3 Syphon Filters, but not here. This is supposed to be a game that's highly replayable, grindy, and always online. Also, the linear levels with lots of set pieces helped out a ton in those early games, which too are gone in Omega Strain. It'd be like a Call of Duty campaign, but take out the story, characters, and memorable set pieces. What does that leave you with? Well, the shooting is still good in that case, but it isn't holding your attention for even a short 4-hour campaign. Okay, so what do you do? Well, I'd make this a third-person shooter proper, with an always on-screen reticle, and give it positional damage for the enemies. For example, a leg shot drops an enemy to the ground, an arm shot makes them drop their weapon. You get the idea. And before you say that's too advanced, keep in mind that the first Medal of Honor did this 5 years earlier, which neatly ties back to my main issue with the game, and probably why this series is now dead. It failed to adapt to the times. There's no real improvements to this game compared to the PlayStation titles. If anything, it's regressed. I'm not saying this should have been a cover shooter, since it was still a couple of years until Killswitch and Winback, much less Gears of War, but there were popular third-person shooters at the time, so this style of game just doesn't work. What I'm trying to say is you have SOCOM, Max Payne, The Suffering, and Freedom Fighters were all out by this time, so to go from those games to this, you gotta do more.
Cobra's down.
The gameplay shortcomings themselves make themselves known right in the tutorial, though it does give us a fun challenge to shoot all the targets within a time limit, rewarding us with a Scorpion SMG. The tutorial also teaches us how to hide bodies, which is a new addition to the series and one I think I utilized a single time in my entire playthrough. Again, people tell me this is a stealth series, but I'm reluctant to believe them. As soon as we finish training, we're sent off to Michigan, which is under attack by some bad guys I can't name because of YouTube rules. Our objective is to find Mujari from the prior games, as he's disappeared while searching for a doctor in the area. We just started the first level, and the plot's already getting a little confusing. I'll try to simplify it going forward, but I have words. A lot of words. I just can't stand how they decided to dish out the plot in this game, but first, let's stop and talk about the actual game itself. Michigan is the most iconic level in the game. Like all the levels, it forms a circle, which actually makes a lot of sense given you're meant to be playing this game with 4 people. But you can't go in one direction because there's a grate blocking the path. You want to get in here because there's a target to take out. You can go the long way, but there's a shortcut. You can blow open the grate with C4, which usually requires 2 people, but I have a better plan. You see, there's a glitch you can do to yeet yourself up these sections. Most levels will have at least one bonus area like this, but here's the tricky part. If you Google for how to do this jump glitch, you'll get contradictory information. Some guides say equip a back weapon, roll, then hit circle and X. Some don't mention a back weapon at all. Some don't mention hitting circle a second time. So what's the answer? I wish I could tell you. The best luck I had was hitting X, the crouch button, as soon as I could see my shoulder about halfway through the roll. But here's the thing, as you discover these places, they're not all the same. Some, like this trailer in the first level, is easy to do. Doing it during this window section in the same level, noticeably harder. I get the sense that the frames you need to do it in increase or decrease depending on the location. There's a couple parts later on where I sat there for like a good 20 minutes and I just couldn't get it once. What I'm trying to say is that your mileage may vary. Sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it's really hard, if not impossible. After grabbing the C4, we can finally head into the subway and kill Proust.
Good work. Teresa, Proust has been taken care of. Copy that. I'll file the DPE.
The levels are broken up into a main objective, which is easy enough, but then there are side objectives that can be tough and sometimes even impossible solo. You also need to collect water samples around the area due to the outbreak. In a callback to the first game, you'll fight alongside the Health Authority, who fill in the same role as the CBDC. Though in a twist, they don't know who you are, and they will shoot you on sight. That is, unless you don the hazmat suit in the level. These mechanics don't show themselves often during the campaign, which I think is a shame, as it sets Omega Strain apart from the more generic third-person shooters. It also makes me wonder how a great single-player version of this game could be if they had focused on more original ideas like this. The fact that it's co-op really pulls the game design into more generic objectives. Run here and flip a switch, or run here and take someone out. I see Omega Strain as a game with some neat ideas that never fully realized its ambition. But I do think games like that tend to become cult classics, trying something new if not flawed. One of the primary objectives here has you running tests on a cadaver, which means defending the machine as waves of enemies spawn in, and this is the first time it hits you. This game's combat is really shallow. I think if combat is your core gameplay mechanic, it needs a lot of thought put into it. It feels slapped on here. Since it was passable in the first game, it should be passable here, right? But that's just not the case. Down in the subway is an underground mall with guys hooked up to explosives. Get too close and they'll take you out with them. This section is also the first time you'll really notice the graphics. It has a really clean look to it and still looks great today. More than that are the effects, such as fire, explosions, and your gun even smokes after firing. There's also reflection effects you can see on the floor tiles. I just love looking at all this stuff. It's really neat and something you don't see that often in games, especially now. This level's got better reflections than most modern games, and it makes me curious how they did it because the FPS never drops below 60. Shell casings make a satisfying sound when hitting the floor, and blood splatters on surfaces behind hit targets. For all my issues with the game, it does look great and plays super smooth. I collect enough water samples and the level just ends with a text pop-up. Geez, that's pretty anticlimactic. But hey, at least I got some awards and unlocks. Although the original Syphon Filter virus was destroyed, it's back. Somehow, Syphon Filter has returned. This time as the Omega strain. This is Ivankov, a Chechen general who's been selling this new virus strain on the black market, and why there's also been outbreaks across the globe. Before and after every level, you'll get a cutscene that sheds some light on the story. These don't do a great job at that, however, for one big reason. The story is unlocked in small fragments based on what objectives you completed in the level. It's kind of like Dark Souls, but somehow even more disjointed and confusing.
Word gets out on the international market that you cannot be trusted, and you won't be able to sell or use them around you.
This thing is out of control. I have people dying all over the damn city. Anyone who's come into contact with this thing is dying.
A lot more people are going to die if you don't do as I say.
Someone's coming. I have to go. The deal is off, Hassan. That's all I have to say.
Not only can you miss cutscenes that are critical to the story, but much of it is explained via text dumps. You'll unlock newspaper headlines, classified documents, and even additional voice acting. So the only way to get the full story is getting 3 other friends, then 100%ing a level, and then also reading all the unlocked story content, moving on to the next level, rinse and repeat. Which obviously not many people did, because that's insane. What you'll actually do is play a couple levels, get some cutscenes, some additional info, and then become disinterested. I think the idea is awesome because that's what I think you're supposed to do, is piece together the conspiracy as you unlock more content, but that's a big ask for a multiplayer action shooter. Character motivations, events that take place outside of the missions, there's a ton of stuff here and it's all necessary to know if you want to understand what's going on. And even if you are unlocking it all as you go, which online is mandatory to do, you cannot unlock all the story content solo, but yeah, even if you do that, the pacing is a nightmare. You're not going to remember half of this stuff. It's a really cool idea, terrible execution. Level 2 takes place again in Carthage. Bad guys speaking French have taken Mujari. I would use the T word here to label them, but again, YouTube. Anyway, this outbreak was the result of a deal gone bad between the Carthage Health Association's director, Broussard, and the T group, the T guys. I believe they're French anarchists. The level begins in the subway, which is full of smoke effects and a really great atmosphere. The music drones, there's sewer water up to your waist, and it's tough to see. I can't help but think of the first Stalker game, or even Splinter Cell. Sure, the graphics might not be the best, but that doesn't matter when you nail the feel. I try and fail to stop them from infecting the local water supply. Sorry, guys.
Damn it, you didn't get those bioterrorists in time. Now I have to report to Teresa that we failed to protect the water supply.
Then a cracked sniper shows up on the city streets. Unlucky for him, grenade beats sniper. Imani and I rescue Mujari, which earns her trust. The ALA, that's the bad French dudes, have holed up in the local mall.
We've lost 4 men already.
Is that the salt factory?
Whoever's in there has a sniper rifle and knows how to use it.
It's time for the final showdown. The entire mall is full of smoke from the local SWAT team, which protects us from the snipers, but there's injured officers inside. We need to get them to safety, which is basically impossible if you're playing by yourself. Sorry, guys. We also need to chain the doors shut so that no one else can enter, which doesn't make much sense to me. Can't the officers outside do that? This level is when the game really beats you over the head with its co-op design. As soon as you start locking the doors or disarming the bombs, that's another objective, it'll spawn enemies who rush your position. By the 3rd time you're doing it, it becomes predictable, and if you're playing solo, there's not much you can do other than cancel the animation, kill them, then restart the animation. The leader of this group is called Masson. Masson? I think it's Masson. He'll come out with a bunch of his sniper buddies, and it's neat hearing them over the radio. It reminds me of Ace Combat, listening in on enemy chatter. Is it realistic? No, probably not, but it adds a lot. The music swells, the enemies screaming, "What's wrong with you? Get him!" It's so dramatic, I really like it.
What's taking so long on Masson? Eliminate him!
Like my ex, Masson can take a beating, and if you die, you can just respawn, there's no real penalty to it. I don't know what a good alternative would be, but just respawning really deflates any tension of a boss fight. Anyway, he eventually goes down, and we bring Mujari back to the agency. In between this mission and the next is our first bonus mission. Gary Stoneman, a new character, takes out the head of an Italian mafia family that was attempting to purchase the virus. I would show footage, but I lost it and it's impossible to get it back. I would have loved to just replay the level to get that footage, but yeah, sorry, it's gone forever and I can't get it back. I'm definitely not lazy. Besides, the next level takes place in Belarus. Wow! Stone has tracked Yuchenko, a Chechen officer, in the area. He's been very naughty, trying to sell the Omega strain to potential buyers in the region. His buddy Zidkov is trying to blow up a steel mill and we're gonna stop him. You can rescue the workers in the area, but again, it's a pain solo, and we got bigger fish to fry. I disable the explosives, grab some C4, and blow Zidkov's train just as he attempts to leave. Gift to Bozo.
First part of the mission is complete. Good work.
While chasing Yuchenko, our helicopter is shot down, with our pilot Alima being taken prisoner. Stone rushes after her, while we track down our gear. This level continues a pattern of placing enemies super high up, almost to a comical degree. Often you can aim at enemies beyond the game's render distance. There's a power station and comms truck to blow up, and a tank to contend with. But it's a little bugged, we'll say. Sometimes it one-shots you, other times you can take a round to the face. We'll deal with it later though, as Stone's been captured. So now we gotta rescue Stone, who is trying to rescue Alima, who is also captured. Maybe we'll get captured too. There's a maze-like compound where Stone's being held, but he thinks Alima's dead. Before another helicopter can pick us up, we gotta deal with that tank, which isn't too difficult when you got some anti-tank grenades.
It wasn't your fault, Stone.
10 years in Nam and I never lost a pilot. It's like a dull knife in my ribs.
You never found her body. Remember LaPon's trick in New York? No one is dead in this business until you touch their corpse.
Don't help. If Alima's not dead, she's wishing she was.
No, Gabe, not Zohar. I don't trust him.
He's all we've got. We need to find out what Yuchenko is selling. And the Mossad already has an op set up in Sana'a.
What's the price, Gabe? Where's the line?
I'll let you know when I cross it. Who can we send?
I know a pretty good field agent.
Gabe's frustrated. Our leads have dried up. All but one, which is making Gabe turn renegade. There's a member of the Israeli intelligence agency who may have some information, but he's sketchy. Leon says no, but Gabe's losing it, so we head off to Yemen. Turns out this guy has a container of Yuchenko's, most certainly proof of the virus. He'll give it to us if we help him with an Israeli assassination. You can play it stealthily, but I'm bad at stealth. There's not a follow-up, I'm just really bad at stealth games. So we provide covering fire for a silly amount of time, and then bounce. But before we do, I want to point out how this game lies to you. You see, the bullets seem to only be graphics or cosmetic. They don't seem to actually cause any damage. Instead, it looks like the damage dealt is reliant on the colored circle while aiming. You can notice this best during this level, as you'll be using a sniper to quickly mark targets. Notice how the target dies, but the bullet clearly missed.
I feel like we have no idea what we're doing.
With the mission complete, he hands over the container.
I was not planning to keep it.
Back in IPCA headquarters, Imani has bugged Mara. This proves her involvement. Her last known location was during a meeting with a man who has ties to the Japanese mafia, which is a great excuse for a Tokyo level.
The Japanese Secret Service thinks he has ties to the Yakuza.
Hot LZ, hang on!
Teresa, we're going down! Say again, our LZ is hot! We're going down! Come on!
We're 2 for 2 on helicopter crashes. Anyway, this level is really what I think of when I think of this game. It's got a great look to it, the mission objectives are interesting, and there's a real sense of journey as you go from the city streets into the parking garage all the way up to the rooftop of Murakawa Tower. Officers wearing flak jackets are spread throughout. All of them except for one guy are just generic enemies. The one guy I'm talking about has heavy armor and a chain gun. I wish they all had a gimmick, like a boss from a Metal Gear game. I think it's a real missed opportunity. This level also has a bunch of side objectives and opportunities to play differently. One such example is the ladder in the elevator shaft. Sure, you can use the elevator, but that'll often alert the enemies on the floor you're entering, so the ladder is a more stealthy approach. There's also a security floor you can get past a few different ways. If you're playing co-op, you can jump the wall. Playing solo, you can stealth by, or in my case, haul ass. On the top floor, we find Murakawa himself. Before we can leave, we gotta defend the chopper again, but this time on the rooftop, fighting alongside Leon.
It's nothing. Mission accomplished. But we didn't get Murakawa.
Wait, I've got news. It's not good.
What?
Imani's flight. It's just gone down.
What do you mean?
She's gone, Leon. No survivors.
Take us home, Gina.
Ivankov intends to attack Moscow, as he's the leader of a separatist faction, but Mara is somewhat of a national, and she wants to stop him. A man named Mihai is working with Mara and is the true antagonist of Syphon Filter the Omega Strain, but you never encounter him in-game. He convinces Mara to meet him before warning the Russian government about Ivankov's attack. Ivankov? I think it's Ivank. This is hard to say. Meanwhile, we're heading to Myanmar with Leon to grab Imani's body. This is where we learn that Ivankov bought a nuclear weapon from North Korea and how he will attack Moscow. We also plant claymores to buy us some time, because as soon as we grab her body, the enemy will begin their pursuit. One of Syphon Filter's strong suits is jumping between city streets in one level, then a rainforest in the next. If anything, it can be a little jarring. Grabbing Imani, yeah, this sucks. Playing solo, you're obviously forced to carry her with no backup, all the while being shot at by enemies who never stop respawning. I just really don't like this level, it's not fun. With Imani's body returned to agency hands, Leon has a breakdown.
I need you here, Leon. We'll mourn for Imani when this is done.
With all the pieces in place, it's time to go after Ivankov and stop his nuke from launching. Mihai is panicking, but we'll get to him in a bit. Gabe's giving us a briefing. This level is an all-out assault.
Ivankov will have his best men concentrated within the base itself. It really won't matter how many there are.
How much time we got?
None. The deadline given by the Politburo is tomorrow at midnight. We have to stop Ivankov before then.
This is what we've been waiting for. Let's go.
Gabe, wait! I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. You were right. If you hadn't gone to Zurich, we may never have found Ivankov's base.
No, Leon. You're the one who was right. I didn't go for the right reasons. I got very lucky. Don't worry. My head's clear now. I know exactly what we have to do.
Что-то не так я это чувствую. Я меняю график.
Our first goal is eliminating Ivankov's officers. Unlike the Tokyo level, they do have their own gimmicks here. There's 2 heavily armored guys on foot, one in a tank and another in a helicopter. The entire level is massive and easily the hardest in the game. Under the base is the missile silo, where we team up with Logan in an attempt to stop the missile that's aimed for Moscow. We have 5 minutes to stop the launch, and I'm really hoping Gabe can carry. I run out of time, but Gabe has a backup plan.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Damn it! The missile's launching. Oh my god. We didn't stop it. No. I damaged the onboard controls enough so that it won't hit Moscow, but it's going to hit somewhere. Time to get out of here. Stone, those explosives set. All ready to go, Chief. Everyone to LZ2. Leon, come get us.
We should have stopped that missile from launching.
The missile will miss Moscow. I made sure of that. We just saved 10 million people's lives. That's nothing to be ashamed of.
I have to attend a summit meeting next week to see if I can stop a war, close up shop and come home. After everything's settled down, we'll talk about where to go next.
Yes, Mr. President.
He doesn't sound happy.
No, he doesn't. The world's barely been saved from a nuclear war. There's going to be more than just one type of fallout to deal with.
So we stopped the nuke from hitting Moscow, but where did it go? I think the ending, or endings, plural, are cobbled together. It's a lot like the ending of a Fallout game, as which cutscenes play depend on your actions in-game. I mean, that sounds great on paper. In reality, it's a bit of a mess. But hey, it could have been worse. Dr. Elsa Weisinger defects from the agency. I guess just by walking out of the base. Why? Also, we never cured the Omega strain. But don't worry, because I have an ace up my sleeve. I got a 100% complete save file. Since you need multiplayer in order to 100% this game, the only way to do that in 2024 is to either download a save file, like I did, or get the online working. With this save file, we cured the Omega strain, President's happy, and Gabe's happy, but the game's far from over. Just look at the video length. We still got the bonus missions that add a ton to the story, so let's dive in. One has you working with a guy named Zohar as you both go undercover in Yemen tracking down a viral container. You're supposed to play it stealthy, but like I said, I'm not good at stealth, and I'm also not too good at timing or following directions. Let's just say mistakes were made. Thankfully, you can go loud and still complete the mission. You can also do this dance, which I found way too late in the game. I'm practically invincible. Ignore my rapidly decreasing health bar. Next bonus level takes place again in Belarus. You work with MI6 operative Maggie Powers, who actually showed up in the third game. She doesn't do anything, but hey, she's here. Anyway, your goal is planting some viral sniffers around a university campus. We suspect it has something to do with Syphon Filter. These missions don't always connect with the main plot, but they do help flesh out the Syphon Filter universe. This is also the most stealth any Syphon Filter game has been, so that option's available to you if you're a weirdo. I didn't get a gun for the aesthetics, okay? Speaking of guns, two of the crazy unlocks in this game is the ability to dual-wield pistols. Then later on, you unlock auto-targeting headshots. It has to be with a pistol, I think, and you gotta be close to the target, but still, I'm double-fisting pistols, plinking full armor guys in the noggin. This game gets really silly by the endgame. Next stealth level has you playing as Mujari. He's a pacifist, so you gotta stealth the entire time or it's an auto-fail. We gotta rescue some hostages, photograph some war crimes, and in a callback to the third game, dance on some mass graves. I don't know why they keep putting this objective in the game, seems inappropriate to me. All the characters in the SF universe are pretty interesting, and I gotta say, well thought out. They all have quirks about them that make them easy to remember. Mujari is a great example. South African apartheid resistance guy turned pacifist. Just having 2 or 3 quirks that make an otherwise minor character easy to remember goes a long way. His somber monologuing is a bit preachy though.
Schools were meant to be places of learning, where the young and curious could expand their knowledge. What lessons had been taught in this place? How many curious minds had been silenced?
If these deceased orphans I'm stepping on could hear this, they'd be rolling their little eyes. In another level, we're heading with Mujari to a secret laboratory in the North Atlantic. This is actually where Mara got the virus in the epilogue of the third game. I think that's pretty cool. What's not cool is this level is confusing as shit. You gotta get to the 13th level. You go down, hit a switch, go up a ladder, but it needs to be on the left side, the right side's locked. Then you need access codes. Then you gotta go down the ladder on the right locked side because now it's unlocked, and it just takes a long time to figure out, and this map does not help. This 50 caliber sniper rifle does though. Having all the guns unlocked breaks the game. Armor, no problem. Ammo, no problem. Figuring out where to go, actually, that is a problem. Seriously, this game does such a great job at switching up locales. I'm under the ocean, for God's sake. Sure, I'm just sitting here, defending a box until the game tells me I can leave, but I'm under the ocean. It's like that Little Mermaid song that the Little Lobster guy sings. I think it's called Under the Ocean. Mujari proves how much of a pacifist he is by blowing up the entire rig. To be fair, he makes an announcement warning everyone, but come on, there's gotta be an unconscious guy or two in there. Not to mention all the people I shot. And Mujari brought me along. He knows how little regard I have for human life.
I will not kill them for making bad career decisions.
2 more bonus levels to go. Next one is infiltrating Mihai's personal building in Switzerland.
You have to incapacitate the guards. Use non-lethal force and hide them.
Cobra, you're violating our agency collateral damage policy.
It's another stealth level, but this one's actually pretty easy once you have a bunch of the unlocked guns and know the enemy patterns. I don't like mandatory stealth, but this is some cool Mission Impossible shit. You have cameras, lasers, secret files. Makes me want to replay the Mission Impossible game on the PS2. It ain't half bad, you know. We're here searching for a connection between Mihai and Meta Global, a company tied to Syphon Filter. We don't have a connection, but we do find an address for Mihai's personal villa in Montenegro.
I've got a shipping request filed for several containers, insured for millions. Inventory says antique paintings. There might be an address on the shipping containers.
Montenegro. Is Niculescu the kind of man who keeps all of his valuables in one place? All neat and ordered like a museum collection? Let's get out of here. You're heading back to Berlin. This is something I have to do myself.
He said he was going to Montenegro alone. I haven't been able to contact him.
Damn it, Gabe. What did he find in Zurich?
Nothing. There were no Meta Global files.
To help our Russian allies with this current terrorist threat. A threat of global biological war.
A poorly done George Bush gives a public statement about helping Russia deal with the Syphon Filter virus. And we have one more bonus level to go.
For the first time, I didn't have any answers. I went into Niculescu's office complex expecting to find the answers to everything. His involvement with Meta Global funds, Mara, Ivankov, Syphon Filter. But we found nothing. It hit me hard. What if I was wrong? Or worse, what if I was right? But Niculescu was better than me, smarter, playing me. Had been from the start. I was near the edge by then, obsessed, irrational. I'm sure I wasn't thinking clearly, but I knew one thing. I had jeopardized the agency and everyone's careers by going into Zurich against orders. And I had failed. If I was going to get evidence on Niculescu, I was going to have to do it alone. I had to risk everything, gambling that while Niculescu was too smart to keep records in Zurich, maybe he wasn't as smart as he thought. He kept his most valuable paintings in his villa. Maybe he kept other things of value there as well.
And this one's a big deal, because we're playing as the legend himself, Gabe Logan. This level is short and sweet, 3 minutes to save Mara and get Mihai. You can stealth your way there, but this is me playing, so 3 minutes.
After years of searching, digging to uncover the Syphon Filter conspiracy, I was close. I merely had to get to Mara before they murdered her.
Kill them! It can't be you.
It seemed hard to believe. Niculescu was in my grasp. I felt like Ahab, about to plunge the harpoon into his demon whale.
I don't know why Gabe's so poetic now, but it's an interesting choice.
Well, this is a nice change. Instead of trying to kill me, you actually saved my life.
Maybe I just wanted to make sure the job was done right.
How many times have you tried, Logan? Now is your chance. But then you would never find Ivankov, would you?
What makes you think I care?
But of course you care. You're one of the good guys, aren't you? You're not going to let... Oh... Oh, it's Niculescu, isn't it? That's how you found this place. Of course. You've been to Zurich and found nothing.
Give me his files, Mara. All of them.
His files? What a fool you are. There are no files. What, you think Mihai is some stupid toadstool like Fagan or Haddon? You think you will just crawl under the bed and find a box full of papers marked Meta Global Funds?
Something like that.
He keeps it in his head. All of it. You will never get Niculescu.
Goodbye, Mara.
Wait. Do with me what you will. I cannot help you with Nicolescu. But Ivankov, that is something I can do.
I'm listening.
It was never about the virus, you know. Ivankov, I mean. That was a tool, a distraction, some easy cash. Your agency. You're all so intelligent, aren't you? The virus, the Omega strain. So much energy spent looking for tomorrow's weapon of mass destruction. You do not see that Ivankov wants yesterday's. I tried to tell him. Mihai, I mean. Mihai expected Ivankov to use the virus against Moscow. He would not listen to me. I tried to tell him that Ivankov sold the virus, made a deal with the North Koreans, traded the Omega strain for a nuclear bomb.
That's what Ivankov is using to blackmail the Politburo.
I tried to tell him. Poor Mihai. He has stockpiled thousands of doses of viral antigen. What a killing Metaglobal would have made. No matter that 10 million of my countrymen would have to die in the process.
Listen to me, Mara.
But he's not going to make much money off a smoldering crater, is he? Where's the profit in that?
Snap out of it. Listen to me. I don't care about Nicolescu anymore. You were right. I was obsessed with him. For a while, uncovering Nicolescu was all that mattered to me. I don't know why, but you've got to help me now. There's still time, Mara. Help me, Mara. Tell me where he is.
This cutscene was so good. Why couldn't we have gotten a full single-player game of this instead? It's just talking, but it's so well written. I mean, it's ham-fisted, but this was 2004. I would have gladly taken this kind of storytelling over the mishmash garbage we got in this game and all the other levels. It sucks because this last bonus level, where you play as Gabe, gives just a tiny peek into a potential game that was never made. Anyway, here's the bad ending I showed earlier, and the good ending you never got to see, side by side.
We should have stopped that missile from launching.
The missile will miss Moscow. I made sure of that. We just saved 10 million people's lives. That's nothing to be ashamed of.
Whose lives did we sacrifice for the lives in Moscow?
I have to attend a summit meeting next week to see if I can stop a war, close up shop, and come home. After everything's settled down, we'll talk about where to go next.
Yes, Mr. President.
He doesn't sound happy.
No, he doesn't. The world's barely been saved from a nuclear war. There's going to be more than just one type of fallout to deal with. We just saved the lives of over 10 million people. Not bad for a night's work.
Hell yeah.
We couldn't have done it without you.
We've got one hell of a ceremony planned here in Washington, and another in Moscow. Close up shop and come home. After everything's settled down, we'll talk about this new facility for your agency.
Yes, Mr. President.
There's also hidden cutscenes showing Mihai being executed by his Russian cohorts.
The computer system.
There is a problem.
Yes, of course. And don't let me keep you. I'm always ready.
I doubt that very much.
Well, the screen cuts to black, so who's to say? Maybe he's still alive. But that's not all, because you're not going to believe this, but Mara's dead. Maybe, in the worst possible way. It's probably a fake out, I don't know.
Dear Mara, I just wanted to thank you for your help. Without it, I'm sure a lot of innocent people would have died. I've enclosed a copy of the deal you signed with the Myanmar army, which resulted in the deaths of 291 innocent people, including my friend Imani Gray. I wanted to let you retire as we discussed, but in the end the price was too high. I know you'll understand. Signed, Gabe Logan.
Good night, sweetheart.
In a final epilogue, Gabe orders Stone to assassinate her via a cutscene. A cutscene. 4 games, and you never get to kill her yourself. You don't even get to see it happen, so maybe she's not actually dead. Anyway, we'll see. For now, it's a Halo 2 finishing the fight ending. Considering how many twists and turns this series has, I'm very curious to see if she's ever revisited in the last 2 games. This series has relied so heavily on the fade to black just as a major character is about to die. At this point, I can't help but roll my eyes when it comes up for the 9th time. But yeah, as my therapist said, there's a lot to unpack here. Overall, I like the idea of the Omega Strain, but it's a bad execution. The story is difficult to follow, and you really gotta play the bonus missions and unlock everything for it to make sense. And even then, it sacrifices a lot. The level design suffers the most, as you can't design a tight experience when you need to account for 3 other players running around. It's the classic live service problem that games like Destiny have. They end up feeling more like an MMO. Which is great if you're into that, but who wants a Syphon Filter MMO or loot shooter? I'm good on that. Now let's see if Dark Mirror changes things.
See you in hell.
Not if I see you first.
The legendary Logan. Sense of humor. Die well, Logan.
After the Omega Strain's poor sales, the Syphon Filter devs were shunned to the PSP. But the pairing made sense. The PSP needed games, and why not continue the popular series on the handheld? It was a great time for a revamp, and that's just what they did. They removed the series lock-on targeting system and replaced it with a more traditional always-on-screen reticle. This made it easier for newcomers to quickly understand, but it also means the game lost a lot of what made it unique. It's hard to think of many, or any games really, that control like the first 4 Syphon Filters. It was a system born out of necessity at the time, since analog sticks for aiming weren't a thing when the first game was being developed. Ape Escape was one of the first games to use and popularize Sony's new analog sticks. A shooter wouldn't do the same until Alien Resurrection in late 2000. But now it was 2006, and Dark Mirror would use a traditional third-person control scheme. Which is fine and dandy until you actually use it, in which case you'll discover, wow, this feels like ass. I'm not exaggerating when I say I think this might be the most stiff shooter I've ever played. The layout for the controls are a bit wonky, but I give leeway since it is a PSP port. I really don't mind that. What I do mind is since the series' inception in '99, not a single thing was done to improve the shooting. It's been 7 years, and they still couldn't be asked to improve the combat. They even removed bloodstains and added weightless ragdolling.
Let me try the front panel. I see him!
I assume this is because the latter is easier on the system's hardware, but it shouldn't be. Details in games shouldn't go backwards. I'm also assuming graphics are always the priority and details are sacrificed for those graphics. I'm sure the devs would have loved to have a real-time lighting system and bloodstains and breakable glass and ragdolling, but the PSP just couldn't handle that. But even so, is it worth cutting all these things just to up the textures a tiny bit? Who's even playing portable games for the graphics? The game does look nice, but I don't care. I don't play portable games for the graphics, we just went over this. Also, every NPC is voiced by Nolan North.
Don't set it up next to the truck! No time to move it. Someone's coming.
Several cutscenes have 3 Nolans talking to each other. Normally this only happens when I forget to take my medication. It's not all bad. The game does look great for a PSP title, and there are little touches like the flickering lights from a fireplace. Levels often have small details like smoke from chimneys in the distance and fog in the mountains. You can even see bloom from windows and lanterns too. Also, the game has a bunch of these really well shot cutscenes with decent voice acting and, oh my god, Gabe, that's not Gabe! That's some kind of uncanny valley imposter, Skinwalker Gabe. The gameplay itself is a traditional third-person shooter like Gears of War, but it does retain a lot of the series' mobility. For example, you can still shimmy across ledges, use ladders, shoot from ladders, crawl in tight spaces, and in a new edition, use pre-placed zip lines. You can shoot from them too. Neato. 2 new gameplay additions are Gabe's goggles. Aping Splinter Cell style, Gabe's goggles can now see infrared and electronic devices. You'll use these to find hidden codes in the environment. You'll also follow cables to terminals and shoot enemies through walls. Sounds great, right? Well, it is. It's really cool when it happens the first time, and then it never happens again. There's only a couple parts where you'll use the goggles to solve a puzzle, and it is awesome. It makes you feel like Batman, Gabe, and you're solving a problem yourself like a super spy would. But these instances are so few that you really forget they exist. It sucks because those faint, fleeting moments should make up the majority of the game. I want to be constantly confronted with a problem, preferably with a time limit, and then fail to solve it because it requires quick wit. But yeah, give me the option, give me player agency. It could be things like escaping a poison room, which actually PsyOps the Mindgate conspiracy did perfectly, which, God, I love that game, I'll make a video about it someday. But another example would be like talking to someone while undercover and having to say the right thing to get past them, which actually Alpha Protocol did perfectly too. God, I love that game. I'll make a video about it someday. My point is, being a super spy should be about both using pew-pew guns, but also your big curvy brain. It made sense back on the PlayStation, but it's been almost a decade later. There is no excuse anymore. The standards were raised, and Dark Mirror learned every wrong lesson from better games. There's nothing wrong with liking bad games because of nostalgia and a need to see things through. If this didn't have Syphon Filter slapped on the front of the box, I likely would have never played it. Nothing about it stands out to consumers. It just sucks that it took player trust that it built up over the years and squandered it with a forgettable experience. The levels are linear and follow a linear story, which is great, but the objectives are not so great. You run through the level killing people, defending other people so that they can hit a button only they can hit. It's not bad in theory, it's just nothing. I'm having to rewatch my own footage and consult my notes on a game I just finished last week. I don't remember what I just played. Now, maybe that's a me problem, but I can't help but feel it's also a Syphon Filter problem. I wouldn't be too harsh if the gameplay itself was a lot of fun, but it's not. Enemies don't react when getting shot, they just stand there firing back until their invisible health bar drops to a 0 value, at which point they awkwardly shift into ragdoll mode and fall over. There's very little strategy or thought put into it. Sometimes you gotta take cover, I guess, but that's about as thinky as it gets. You know, the more I think about it, the sadder this game makes me. Omega Strain really was the death of the SF series. Sure, there's this game and its sequel, Logan Shadow, but you could have called this game anything and it would have been fine. It's not like there's anything in here that's unmistakable as Syphon Filter. Syphon Filter the virus isn't even in the game, which I guess isn't all that important, but still. They did try new things though. You can now hug walls and fire from cover like in Metal Gear, but it's bad and clunky to control. Also, you get this new sniper rifle, but I don't really get the obsession with it. It's like they try to make it your main gun because it's with you on pretty much every level. To be honest, I'm not a fan of it. It has different darts you can use, like gas darts, explosive darts, and electric shock darts, but they're basically all the same. The game never forces you to use one over the other, and they always take out a target. The game itself begins with a tutorial given by Teresa, who should have died in the second game, I'm Still Mad.
Okay, your goal in this training mission is to learn basic agency navigation and maneuvers. Follow the arrows in my instructions to reach the agency flag. Once you've learned the basics, you can try the mission again and attempt to break the record time. Are you ready?
Ready.
Go.
She gives Gabe instructions on how to play. It's handled pretty well and does a good job on getting you up to speed and introducing the new goggles. I just don't like how Teresa never shuts up.
Press the triangle button to climb objects. To crawl, press the triangle button. You can climb anything to left and right.
At the end of it, it also shows you that you can earn mission ratings similar to Omega Strain, but a little less intense. You have awards and specialist ratings you can get, like Combat Knife Specialist, which I think just unlocks more weapons. After the tutorial, Gabe and Leon are sent to a petroleum plant in Alaska. It's under attack by a paramilitary group known as Red Section. The opening briefing does a good job on setting up the stage. Why send in Gabe and Leon, covert agents, instead of the military? Red Section doesn't seem to be utilizing biological warfare. The first level also serves as a second tutorial, you could say. Leon chimes in explaining to us how to use our EDS goggles, which I get it is the first level, but we just had a tutorial. Why did we just complete the tutorial to have a second tutorial? Why does the game have two tutorials?
Try using your EDSU goggles.
And I didn't think you could, but yeah, no shooting out lights. Bummer. After stopping the plant from blowing up, the first level ends with providing Leon some covering fire. You can tell her when to advance with a button press, and it's just not fun. The later Syphon Filter games really have this problem with putting their worst foot forward. Damn, that's hard to say. Remember how amazing the first level of the first Syphon Filter game was? Why is this not better than that? Isn't that the standard we all should have? And don't tell me my standards are too high. I'm annoyed by this because I care. Replaying these games in order, experiencing how each one is somehow a little worse than the last, is baffling to me. It's like the devs are learning in reverse. I don't want Leon to awkwardly shuffle to her next pre-programmed spot, waiting for me to push a button. And how did the CBDC guys in the first game seem so much more intelligent, reactive, and independent, but not Leon in a game that came out like 7 years later? It's so stiff and awkward and fake. I'm bored. Leon, wake me up.
Staging area?
Oh god, that's horrifying. Thank you, I guess. On to the next level, and you meet up with Nolan, who's talking to himself.
Don't set it up next to the truck! No time to move it. Someone's coming.
There are a few instances where enemies will kick over tables to act as cover. Now, these are scripted events, but I don't really have an issue with that. They make the enemies seem more dynamic, which is always a plus. This section also has you using the goggles to follow a wire in order to access a terminal. After which, enemies storm into the room, which again makes them seem smarter than their programming actually is. I really enjoy these moments, and I give the game props for them. After which is a turret section that spawns a bunch of guys. I don't like turret sections, but I also can't complain too much, because these were just so normal around the time this game came out. I feel like every shooter had at least one turret section. After which you get I don't know if I want to call it a callback, but you fight a fully armored flamethrower wielding boss guy. Now, I don't know if he's actually a boss, he dies in one shot, but he's kind of like a boss. I mean, he has a health bar. He's basically just Gerdu from the first game, but forgettable and worse in every way. The game even refers to him in the next level's briefing. I talked a bit before about how this game is a regression, and you couldn't find a more perfect example of that with this boss fight. The fight itself is comically short. I'm replaying footage because that's all the footage there is of this guy. It's that short. His design was already done 7 years ago, he has no personality, and he just appears in the story with zero build-up. Whereas Gerdu, he had an accent, he was part of Black Baton. I mean, the fact that I can remember his name, his accent, where you fight him, and the name of the organization he's in speaks to how memorable he was. Compared to this game, where I had to look up the footage twice while writing this part because I forgot his name twice. It's Red Jack, by the way. Now, what does Red Jack mean? I don't know. It's just a code name they give, a very generic, forgettable code name. Whereas I'm pretty sure Gerdu was his actual name in SF1. It wasn't like a code name. I googled Red Jack just to try to find more information, and I guess it's another word for Jack the Ripper. Now, what does Jack the Ripper have to do with flamethrowers? I don't know.
Red Jack, is that you? How'd it go up there? Hey, I'm working on the power here. Whatever you do, don't hit that breaker switch.
Anyway, turns out the foreman of this facility has an NSA profile with a whole bunch of classified sections we can't read, which is a bit strange considering we're the IPCA. So it's off to steal his personal files from the server room. Heading down into the facility, we run into a bunch of fun setups. We rescue a plant worker who agrees to help us restore the plant's power, which really just means pressing a button at the same time he does. Bruh, seriously? While the shooting isn't very good, there are moments where it does feel really graphic. Enemies drop like a sack of potatoes if shot in the head. It feels gruesome even without blood.
Get out of here.
Logan finds a bunch of missing data drives in the server room, but there's an off-limits section of the plant. While Gabe's heading there, Leon is at the enemy landing site looking for missing drives. Switching characters isn't new to the series, but a YouTube comment pointed out that Gabe doesn't feel special whenever everyone else plays just like him. And I gotta agree. You also play as Leon, Teresa, Mujari, and they're all identical to Gabe. So why is he special? Gameplay-wise, he's the same. which I get. It would be a nightmare to design gameplay for different characters, especially back on the PS1. But lore-wise, it really downplays Gabe. I thought the implication was that he's the best at what he does. Like, sure, there are other agents who are great at their jobs, but we're playing as Gabe because he's the best. He's supposed to be the most interesting character in the story. The point of view is usually that person. It doesn't have to be, of course, but it usually is. I think Leon makes the most sense, to be fair, as she's had the same level of training, if not more, than Gabe. Teresa was an ATF agent, and Mujari is a scientist who does field work on the side. Meanwhile, Gabe joined the military, was an Army Ranger, Spec Ops, and then joined an international terrorism unit before joining the agency. The only protagonist in the lore who rivals his experience would be Leon. I also want to mention how refreshing it is that most of the characters in this series are in their 30s and 40s. Gabe's 35 during the events of the first game and is pushing 45 by the end, while Leon was 30 in SF1 and 38 in Logan Shadow. That's something I really like about Splinter Cell, Metal Gear, and Syphon Filter. The protagonists are all 30, if not 40. I think for a lot of action movies and games, you think of 20-year-old kids who are super smart experts in everything with 50 years experience under their belt. If I did have a criticism for these characters, it would be that they need more weaknesses. They touch on it a tiny bit with Gabe getting tunnel vision while chasing Mihai in Omega Strain, but even in that game, he's proven right. Sam, Gabe, and Logan don't make enough mistakes, and I think that's kind of boring. To be fair, it's a holdover from earlier video games not having good stories, so I get it, but there you go. Michael Ironside wasn't even going to voice Sam Fisher unless they made him more than just a dumb action hero. I doubt early iterations even included him having a daughter, which isn't much, but it's something, and it's more than most games were doing back then. Which is why the first Metal Gear was mind-blowing at the time. I just wish Syphon Filter did more of that. They do try a bit in this game, which we'll get to. The landing site is a nice escape from the cramped facility Gabe's at. The plane itself acting as a fun set piece in the center. I also like how you're playing both sides of the story. When Gabe is talking with Leon, she was here, but now you're doing what she discussed with Gabe over the radio. Before we can leave, however, we gotta disable the plane, which means going through it, climbing to the top, then slowly walking away from the explosion.
Gabe, red section is officially without transport.
Back with Gabe, the game throws a new surprise our way. Trip mines are periodically placed throughout the level. Teresa tells us to use the new goggles, but I wasn't listening. You can also shoot the mines to blow them up, but I wish they also included the C4 guys from Omega Strain. They're like little jump scares. The downside to wearing the goggles everywhere is everything's red. All the time, always. There's no real functional disadvantage, I guess, but red. To be honest, I hate alternative vision modes in games. It's not really bad here, but I'm having Batman flashbacks. I'll always blame the Arkham games for popularizing Batman vision, which now almost every game uses, even to this day. It's either a stupid vision mode that makes the game look terrible via a filter, or it's a stupid ping. If I need to ping to find nearby collectibles, then how about designing your game better? I'm looking at you, Assassin's Creed. Sorry, off topic.
Hey, Greasy, how long can you hold your breath?
They're about to kill a plant worker, and hey, it's a poison gas room. It's not as good as the one in PsyOps, but I still enjoyed it. You gotta shoot the vents on the ceiling, and it would be much cooler if the plant worker didn't tell you what to do. That actually really sucks. There's no way to turn off these hints either. It's like the game is backseat gaming.
They must have locked out the vents above. See if you can find another way to open them.
Don't tell me how to solve the puzzle before you even gave me a chance to try. The guy dies but drops a flower, which is strange. Gabe thinks there's a hothouse hidden in the plant, which I'm assuming is like a greenhouse. I don't know plants. One section of the place is blacked out on the map, so it's where we're heading. I want to say it's clever of Gabe to think of that, but then I realized, no, it's not. It's bad writing because there's no reason this guy would have a flower on him. I'm guessing the flower has something to do with Dark Mirror, which is probably a biological weapon like Syphon Filter. but why would he have it on his person? Also, I know I finished the game by the time I'm writing this script, but like I said, I honestly forgot what happens. So I'm like re-experiencing the story for a second time. Leon and Gabe meet up in an attempt to rescue the foreman of the facility, a guy named Malcolm Freeman. Why can't the enemies trigger the mines? That's some bullshit. Guarding Freeman is Black King, a boss whose specialty is bombs? I don't mean he uses bombs, I mean he just kind of planted them around the level, and they blow up if you shoot them. You can hit square to have Leon distract him while you disarm the bombs.
Explosives disarmed.
Thank God. Now we can take him out.
Freeman's been killed, unalived himself via a cyanide pill. On him was a disc showing this plant was a front for a covert government weapons program. Back at IPCA Command, it's good to be back, we find out that they were working on Project Dark Mirror. The corporation putting up this front were modifying plants and working on something dangerous. Anyway, they're called chemsynth, and the source of these plants are from their operations in Peru. The head of security there is a woman named Addison Hargrove. She was Gabe's first partner when he joined the agency and his first and only love interest in the entire series. It's a big character development. Ooh, Gabe's got a girlfriend. No, had a girlfriend. See, she left the agency and never told him why. So it's off to Peru to get some answers. Red Section is here and provoking the locals to rise up against the chemsynth corporation working on Dark Mirror. We find Addison just as she's being captured by Red Section. We rescue her, exchange awkward dialogue.
Heard you screaming, thought I'd come up and say hello.
Same old Gabe. Let me guess. You give me protective custody in exchange for my files.
Something like that.
What makes you any different from them?
For starters, he's dead.
Then fight together to her field office. There's another turret section here where you have to defend her while she runs ahead. Inside her office, the writing is not bad. It's melodramatic like a Hollywood movie, but hey, it's okay, all things considered.
You still have that old quilt, I see.
I can't believe you remember that. It was my mother's.
I remember a lot of things. Okay, I've got it.
I know you do, Gabe. I'm sorry.
Empty.
All my back files are gone, but at least we have these.
Gabe, are you ready to rendezvous?
Affirmative. We're on our way.
Gabe? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you keep saying. Let's get the hell out of here.
This is the first time a Syphon Filter game really put the characters in the spotlight, which I think is a smart choice. It adds drama and makes you care a lot more than just stop the doomsday weapon. Addison isn't sure what chemsynth was researching. They told her it was for a pesticide, but Red Section is starting a war against the UN and local government forces in order to get whatever it is. First in Peru and now in Bosnia. It's obvious Addison isn't telling us the full story, but Gabe lets her go regardless. We head to Bosnia and strike at the same time as the UN. There's a few times during the combat that just feel really good. Headshots in this game, despite not having any gore, are super satisfying. On a related note, I actually really like Gabe's voice acting too.
UN peacekeepers are beginning their assault. I'm heading to the insertion point.
I think it's the best he's sounded since the first game, and he's pretty well written. I also think it's helped by the fact that it's a very Gabe-focused game, far more than any of the prior games in the series.
You know what I mean.
I don't know. The agency changed, I changed, I just couldn't do it anymore. Any of it.
You let her go. She's hiding something.
I know. The NSA's following her. If they find anything, they'll let us know.
We get sent off to do some busy work by grabbing medical supplies to save one soldier, which feels like not the best use of our time. Also, we need to recon the enemy forces, called the Zimovic. Oh no. Sudden plot twist, the UN soldier we were with was a mole. The medical supplies were just a ruse to get us away from him so that he could kill the soldiers and grab a file which had information about Red Section. I catch up with him and go a little overboard.
Jansen. Teresa, I've eliminated the Red Section mole. And Abrams. Looks like one of the good guys. On second thought, maybe not. Zivmovic must be in there.
An MIA 2. Can you use your EDSU goggles to spot the weak points?
I just picked up a big solution.
The goggles in this game would be great if the game didn't literally tell us to use them every time they had to be used. I just wish the game would trust you a little. Let me figure it out on my own.
He's dead.
Crest must have been feeding the ZP information about the UN. That's the only way the ZP could have held out for so long.
Yeah. Crest was a Red Section mole working inside the UN. Damn kids never had a chance. The bastard was posing as a medical worker and I left him alone with them. How did Red Section get someone placed so highly in the UN? How many more young kids like Jansen are gonna die before we get some answers? Logan out.
There's an MI6 connection between the Russian Mafia and Red Section. They run a casino in Russia, which is going to be our next stop. One huge plus for this game is optional stealth. If I remember right, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory did the same and even had a meta joke about it. For the 3 people watching who remember this, let me know in the comments that I'm not crazy. I couldn't find footage, but I swear it happened. Anyway, they removed the frustrating mandatory stealth missions from the prior games. In my opinion, being seen shouldn't end the level. I think it should just make it harder and maybe lock out some optional bonus objectives. While inside the casino, Red Section arrives on scene to stop us. They even start taking out the Mafia members.
Mr. Touchstone, Mr. Yavlinsky is currently dealing with the crisis, but if you'd like to...
Eliminate everybody. That information must not leave the casino.
Some of these guys got body armor, and I don't know why, but this level design is so much more interesting than the prior ones. In earlier levels, you were shooting in bland city streets or boxy ruins. Here, you got underlit statues, card tables, balconies. It's a far more memorable environment, much like the first game. The first game had city streets too, but instead of store 1 and store 2 lining the streets, it was a bar with a pool table and an alleyway with a hidden grenade launcher. There were little discoveries waiting to be found. I think care was put into it, and care in games is one of those things you don't notice, but your brain did. Syphon Filter Dark Mirror, it just doesn't care, not like the first game did, and I find it really sad. I don't think even the devs noticed. I don't think it was intentional. Anyway, Leon picks us up, while Red Section wipes out the Mafia. Red Section's second in command is a guy called Touchstone. Okay, so turns out Red Section is being partially financed by the Mafia, a connection they want to sever along with any evidence of their dealings. This is because MI6 is on their trail. It's a little confusing. I think Garvin's script is actually really good, but the way it's told in the format of the game is kinda bad. The same cutscene will begin in the future only to rewind to the present and sometimes rewind to the past. From the present, meaning where in time the gameplay you were just playing takes place. It's hard to explain. So for example, after completing the casino Russian Mafia level, the next cutscene jumps ahead in time. It doesn't say when, but it implies not long, a week at most. Then mid-cutscene, it jumps backwards 3 days, which I think is shortly after the Mafia level, but again it doesn't say, so I'm guessing based on implications. 3 days not from the gameplay you were just playing, but 3 days from the start of the cutscene, which is actually the future from the gameplay's perspective, but not as far into the future as the flashback part of the cutscene. You're working with 3 periods of time, all in the span of 3 minutes, told in a non-linear order. Christopher Nolan movies are more linear than these games. You gotta bust out the corkboard and thread to make sense of this. I'm losing my mind. It's very difficult to keep track of what's going on and when. Okay, so Addison reveals she had a daughter, which is why she left the agency. She took what she thought was an easy security job, which is how she got caught up in all this. Gabe asks if the daughter is his. She says no, which, yeah, fat chance. Anyway, Red Section took Addison's daughter because Addison stole her employer's information about Project Dark Mirror. Turns out it's a hybrid plant of some importance. Red Section wants that info. Addison wants her daughter back, and Gabe wants some love in his life. So Gabe and her team up to spring an ambush on Touchstone.
Where is my daughter, you bastard?
Keep him talking. And Addison, nothing's going to happen. I promise.
Tell me where my daughter is, and I'll tell you where the discs are.
You are not in a position to bargain.
You better not harm her. or I'll kill you myself.
I'll slit her throat myself if you don't give me the discs.
The deal was you come alone, you bastard.
The deal is simple. The discs for your daughter.
I don't trust you!
Addison, no!
Oh no. What was her plan? Oh, I see you've brought snipers to watch over our deal. Let me engage in fisticuffs with you? What did she think was gonna happen? What was she envisioning in her head? Anyway, Gabe goes full Hulk mode. Nolan North voicing every NPC kinda takes me out of it, but whatever.
Cover me!
You'd think you'd get used to it by now, but you don't. He's every enemy. It's a borderline parody. Make a game where everyone is voiced by either Troy Baker or Nolan North. Dark Mirror is halfway there already. Addison's death prompts Gabe to do what he was already going to. Destroy Red Section, get to the bottom of Dark Mirror, and save Blake, Addison's daughter. This is Gabe's low point, the part in the story when all hope is or seems lost. And it just reminds me that I generally like the story, again, just not how it's told. The game really places gameplay over story when the gameplay's not good. Metal Gear Solid was doing the opposite while still having better gameplay, and Splinter Cell was having a nice balance of the two. I get it's a PSP game first and foremost, but there were still good PSP games that had both engaging cutscenes and really good gameplay. Also, Dark Mirror uses a mix of pre-rendered and in-game cutscenes, but the former are way too few. This cutscene is great though. It has a lot of drama and mystery as Addison is clearly not being honest. You also have a slower version of the main theme music playing over it, and it's just really good stuff.
I just couldn't do it anymore. Any of it.
But then Addison's death is told with an awkward in-game cutscene that made me burst out laughing.
Addison, no! Touchstone.
Sometimes the game design is pretty good though. Like for example, there's a part where you gotta rescue a hostage, and another with people trapped in an elevator.
Help us! Anyone, help us before this thing falls!
These small moments of drama break up the flow in a really nice way, and it's great that they're peppered throughout the game. I feel like sometimes games will front load all the cool bits to the beginning and then just coast until you hit end credits. But like I said, the combat itself can be a bit off. Thankfully, Touchstone's boss battle is epic. Seriously, what is this? He runs out to a balcony and you shoot him in the head. Did I play it wrong? Is my game bugged? Is this some kind of meta commentary on boss battles in games? Syphon Filter, why do you make it so hard to love you? Next is another time I burst out laughing while playing.
The legendary Logan. Sense of humor. Die well, Logan.
This is the guy who killed Gabe's love interest. Why isn't it a pre-rendered cutscene? It's told with the game engine, but in the next cutscene, where they're giving exposition, just standing around yapping, is told via an expensive pre-rendered cinematic. Why? That's not entirely true. There's this part which also made me lose it. Gabe, watch out! He can see you through the fence. Oh, I guess he can't. Okay, how does that work? How can he not see him through the fence? Back at base, using MI6's listening devices that were planted at the Mafia's casino, we learn that Red Section is the personal army of a guy named Grant Morrill. Grant used to work for Interpol, but now he's working on Dark Mirror. Turns out it's a new type of nerve gas. His company is heavily guarded, and he's developed armor that deflects bullets. We're here to stop Dark Mirror, rescue Blake if she's still alive, and bring Morrill to justice. Gabe and Leon split up as Leon finds and rescues Blake from a Dr. Evil-style death trap. I'd expect this silliness from a Resident Evil game. Anyway, we rescue her, but she takes off running.
Get away from me! Hey, get back here! Gabe, I found Blake, but she ran off.
I'll track her down. Keep after Singularity.
On it, zing out.
Leon takes after my own mother as she attempts to destroy the Dark Mirror data by shooting the computer monitors. Leon, that's not how that works.
Opening now.
Nice moves, Leon. Gabe goes after Blake, who managed to get herself captured a second time.
They stole one of my tennis shoes.
Gabe rescues Blake and has a bonding moment by flipping some switches. Beats going fishing, I guess. Leon meets up with Gabe and blows open an escape route.
Leon, get up here and escort Blake out of the facility. I have a score to settle with Singularity.
Roger that.
Blake, go with Leon. She'll get you out safely.
Okay.
Gabe, we don't know what he's going to do with Dark Mirror.
Just get her out of here. I'll handle Singularity.
How many have died under your command? Your file lists quite a few. Jason Chance, Imani Gray, William Crusher. How many more?
Grant's boss fight is trash, but it is better than Touchstone's. Also, the banter is hilarious.
You're more impressive than your record.
And I've read yours. Your codename fits, doesn't it? Skull so dense nothing can escape, not even intelligence.
Kill him!
Wouldn't that mean he's smart, since intelligence can't leak out of his skull? Am I the idiot for not getting this? Anyway, he taunts Gabe by recalling all the big events from the previous games. I'd be lying if I said my heart didn't grow 3 sizes that day.
How'd you feel when you found out you'd been Vincent Hadler's bitch during the entire Syphon Filter fiasco?
It's a really cute callback. The game is telling the player, hey, if you stuck with the series this long, thanks. It's a nice bonus for longtime fans such as myself. Anyway, you beat Grant, or Singularity, which is his codename, by using electronic gadgets and shooting him a bunch.
You think it ends here, don't you? Do you know why they call it Dark Mirror?
I don't care, Singularity. It's over.
Don't forget, I know agency tech, Logan. I know all about you. More than you know yourself. Your rifle, for instance.
Don't. I mean it.
Your X-34 gas darts. Who do you think manufactures them? Who do you think supplies all of your arms? Look in the mirror, Logan. See your reflection. Look in the dark mirror.
I said don't. That's for Addison. I don't need a dark mirror to see who I am or what I'm capable of, Singularity. I already know.
With the Dark Mirror threat destroyed, it's time to pay our respects to Addison, thus ending Syphon Filter Dark Mirror. Nah, just kidding. It wouldn't be an SF game without a fake death.
Addison? Addison! How the hell did you... Where did you...
Wait. Let me explain. There's nothing easier than faking a death. You tell me that yourself.
Why did you lie to me? How could you let me think you were dead?
Look, I didn't mean to lie to you.
Mom, what's taking you so long? Oh, Mr. Logan.
Hey, kid.
Honey, I told you to wait in the car.
I'm glad I got to see you again, Blake. I wanted to tell you something. You've got to be the bravest 10-year-old anyone's ever seen.
Thanks, Mr. Logan. But I'm 12, not 10.
Okay, hon, get in the car.
Mom!
Go!
Okay. Bye, Mr. Logan. Thanks again. Hurry up, Mom.
She's 12. Why didn't you tell me she was mine?
She's all I've got. I can't trust anyone with her. Gabe, don't.
She's my daughter!
Gabe, look at what your damned agency has done to you! Do you really want to risk putting her through that?
Mom, come on!
Are you going to leave the agency? Leave your life behind?
Mom, come on! Mom!
Gabe, let us go.
Well, of course she's Gabe's daughter, duh. Addison makes a good point. Gabe decides to stick with the agency, saying goodbye to his daughter, for now at least. Thus ending Syphon Filter. Nah, just kidding. We still got some bonus missions. I won't go into these too much, but there's one that's really important. Remember in Omega Strain how Mara Aramov dies by Stoneman? Remember how I whined about it being a cutscene instead of letting you play it? Well, the SF creators clearly invented a time machine, heard my complaints, and fixed it in this game. One bonus mission has you playing as Gary Stoneman, finally taking out Mara Aramov. The cackling subway woman from the first game finally meets her end, to a geriatric Vietnam vet stereotype. Not only that, but we're also killing Elsa Weisinger, since she betrayed the agency and stole files. Turns out her and Mara Aramov are dating. Ooh, steamy. This game's full of love, but you gotta wait for the perfect lineup. Oh my god, stop moving.
You may have a steel plate in your goddamn head, but that ain't gonna stop me. Teresa, tell Gabe the DPE has been filled. Target's down. Job's finished.
Copy that, Stone. I'll let him know.
You know something, darling?
What, Stone?
As many years Gabe's been trying to take out Mara, it's hard to believe she's finally gone.
I know. It's like a nightmare is finally over.
When it come right down to it, Mara may have been evil incarnate, but she had a heart, just like the rest of us.
A heart of ice. The gendarme are on their way. Come home, Stone. Lapon out.
Good night, sweethearts.
What? How is she evil but has a heart? This writing is ridiculous, but it's the perfect ending. Clumsy writing for a clumsy retrospective. Only one game left, and I'm super excited to see how it ends. Just shy of 2 years since Dark Mirror, which I hated, comes Logan Shadow, the final entry in the Syphon Filter series. Originally a PSP game, it quietly got ported to the PS2 in 2010, which is how I played it for the first time in 2024. While I might have not been a fan, Dark Mirror did score highly on the PSP. It was the right game for the right platform at the right time, so a sequel was quickly given the green light, with the series veterans Ben Studios behind the project. Longtime co-creator John Garvin was both director and writer, but also brought on Greg Rucka. Greg's a fairly prolific novelist specializing in thrillers, espionage, and comic books. The latter might seem like a strange addition to include, but I think it fits the Syphon Filter series really well. Gabe Logan, Sam Fisher, James Bond, these guys are almost superheroes. But what Greg really brought to the writer's table was a deeper focus on interpersonal drama.
Azerbaijan. Then you know everything.
No, Leon. I don't know anything. There's no time now. We have to get out of here.
I know a way. Come on.
Dark Mirror was the first time a Syphon Filter game really focused on the characters of the story. Logan Shadow took that ball and ran with it, largely because of Greg. Along with a new assistant writer, Ben Studios also took a hard turn in the music department, bringing in composers Justin Burnett and Jonathan Mayer, with Iranian vocalist Azam Ali providing vocals for some truly remarkable tracks. The game's score complements the new tone perfectly. While I can't get over how disgusting Gabe looks, the story does feel like Syphon Filter, but evolved. While I felt that Dark Mirror was a stagnation of the series, if not a regression, Logan Shadow is the polar opposite. It's good, and if I were playing this on a PSP in 2007, I would even say it's great. The music is a huge departure, while the plot is an upgrade, and the two connect in a beautiful symbiotic relationship. This is the most melancholic the series has ever been. It's also the most emotional it's ever been too. The music just nails it. It's like a mixture of Metal Gear Solid and Nier Automata. I'd award it an easy 8, maybe even a 9 out of 10. I'm just a huge fan. The only downside is that the original theme is nowhere to be found. I would have even accepted it being sampled somewhere in the new score. Now, I wish I could say the same for the sound. It's not the sound design that's fine, but the sound quality itself.
I'm going in to find them. You risk much for this woman. Is she worth it? You risk much for your country. Is it? Godspeed, Gabriel Logan. I hope you find her.
What happened? Gabe sounds like he's on the Nintendo DS. I guess he kinda looks like it too. Anyway, you acclimate to it quickly, but oof. Big oof, actually. Lol. Lamau even. A lot of old assets from Dark Mirror were brought over and reused, but considering that was a short PSP title, I think it's okay. Plus, they made plenty of new assets as well, so it's not like you're recognizing too much if you play both games. The textures still look very nice, and the art design is appealing and recognizable. Bonus missions return, and there's even one that showcases the progression graphics go through when making a game like this. You start out with some wireframes giving you the basic geometry, add a texture base to get the layout down, then some lighting and more geometry, textures, another lighting pass, some effects, throw in some particle effects like sand blown by the wind, and boom, you got a level. I'm simplifying it, of course, but it's great the game gives you a peek into game development. Logan Shadow also introduces the ability to swim and dive, and underwater combat. It even looks fantastic. It's obvious you're underwater without it being a pain to see or control. Underwater levels are pretty notorious for having these issues, but I never dreaded a water level here. I especially like the water effects when shot, or when you're floating on the surface. Underwater, the sounds are muffled, with bubbles rising to the surface. There's a bluish hue without it being distracting or fake. It's just overall really well done, and if anything, the game doesn't utilize the underwater sections enough. I was pleasantly surprised with its implementation, and funny enough, the SOCOM series, a series about Navy SEALs, doesn't feature any underwater diving. In fact, it doesn't feature much swimming at all, so it's interesting that Syphon Filter does, and does it well. The underwater combat isn't as good as on land, of course, but still, I really enjoyed it. While you can use your standard firearms, they're very slow and inaccurate, so the game provides a couple of underwater specific weapons that act like bolt guns. They're not as effective as land weapons, but they get the job done. They also feel great to use. Swimming also feels great. It's some of the best underwater movement I've experienced, which really came out of left field for me. And the main thing the underwater sections do is create variety. The game's short, coming in at maybe 4 hours with a regular playthrough. It's 6 levels broken up into several parts or sections per level. I imagine the PSP's disc needed loading times, and it's about on par with a PS2 game. If you're playing this on the PSP, the levels are going to be broken up into sections, which makes it easy to take breaks. Basically, you boot up the game, play a section or two, which is like 10 to 20 minutes, and then you can put it down. It also autosaves between every section, so you're never losing much time. The first thing I noticed when booting the game up is just how much of an improvement it is over Dark Mirror. Dark Mirror was so stiff to control, it felt so bad. I wouldn't call Logan Shadow smooth, but it is leaps and bounds above the prior game. Many gameplay elements were brought back, but also improved upon. Putting your back to cover has been dramatically improved. Now it's easy to do, easy to control, and makes you near impossible to hit. You can also blind fire, which I never used, but it's great to have the option. It's meant to be used as suppressing fire, forcing enemies to take cover and stopping them from firing back at you. Though the enemy AI is still a huge sticking point for me, they seem brain dead. They either stand still and fire at you with no self-preservation, or they awkwardly run towards you, then run away, just to run back at you. I could never suspend my disbelief that these were anything more than lifeless targets for me to shoot. If you watched my Dark Mirror video, then you might remember how much I hated the combat and enemy reactions, or lack thereof, in that game. While Logan Shadow isn't going to blow your mind, I am happy to report it is a noticeable step up. Yes, the AI isn't great, but enemies limp after being shot, will attempt to move after being shot, and sometimes they even manage to take cover. Sometimes they take cover, like this guy, and sometimes they just stand there. Why? I have no idea, but I noticed it a lot. So with that said, I'll take it. Unfortunately, I was never flanked or had grenades thrown at me either. AI is one of those things that seems subtle, but really isn't. You notice if enemies work together against you, one should pin you down with suppressive fire while the other comes around your corner. Other games were doing this at the time, so I gotta dock points for it. Some enemies would aggressively, but also mindlessly, just walk towards you. These guys had the same bulletproof armor from prior games, which is also a gimmick Syphon Filter has been doing since the first game with Gerdu. They change it a little bit in that this time you can shoot their knees that drops them to the ground, and then you gotta shoot their power backpacks. It's okay, but it doesn't change things up enough. I did have a genuinely awesome moment of fighting these guys though that came later in the game. So I took the series' iconic taser, and while we were fighting in knee-deep water, I put 2 and 2 together. I zapped the water, and what do you know, it worked. Teresa also never chimed in over the radio in her stupid voice, "Hey Gabe, use the taser to zap these guys." Nope, I just saw the water, saw my taser, and used my 7 brain cells, and put 2 and 2 together. I wasn't expecting the game to do that, but it did, and it put a big smile on my face. The melee system also got a complete overhaul. You can now stealth kill enemies from behind, though I had trouble getting it to work because sometimes I would just grab the enemy as a human shield, which is also a new addition. Once grabbed, a bar begins filling up. Once full, they'll push you off them. I think this is a simple and great idea to keep it hectic during firefights, and you can also kill them once grabbed, but this does require completing a QuickTime event, which is another new addition. I know QuickTime events get a bad rap, but I enjoyed their implementation in this game. I think they work really well. For one, they're not that frequent, so you don't get annoyed with their inclusion like you would in God of War. And 2, they usually rely on a single random button press instead of mashing a button. There are times you need to mash, but they're fairly rare. And 3, like the water sections, the zipline, the trip mines, and the armored enemies, they're a small addition that build onto the game's diversity. While the combat is improved, it's also the small additions breaking up shooting the bad guys gameplay that makes the game as a whole much more fun to play. That's a convoluted way to say I like when the game makes me do different things. I don't want to do one thing over and over again. I want to do X fun thing, then Y fun thing, then Z fun thing, then return to X. That gameplay loop is so enjoyable, especially when it mixes it up and keeps me problem solving as I play. Speaking of problem solving, the game is genuinely difficult in some parts. It's not difficult like you need to get good, more so you need to pay attention and take the enemies seriously. Richard Hamm finally got his wish, since you can really die in only a couple shots in this game. If you try to run up and grab an enemy, you will likely die before you reach him, even if he's the only one shooting at you. It's refreshing and kept my eyes from glazing over. Anytime I got a little bored and tuned out, I'd die, and then I'd have to be like, okay, let's do that again, but with some brain power. Helping you out is a new regenerative health system, which is a fancy way of saying it's Halo 1, which actually works beautifully. You have your armor, which is static and is gone when you take damage. Of course, you can take it off enemies you shoot in the head, or find in extra crates. And you also have your health. But this time, instead of medkits like in Dark Mirror, which didn't work that great, you now have a health bar that regenerates if you don't take damage in a short period of time. It's subtle and tastefully done, and I think it's the best health system the series has ever had. There's a reason so many games use it. As for stealth, it's been made more clear this time around. If you play in mission mode, it'll explicitly tell you how many stealth kills are possible in this level before starting. I like this because you're rewarded with specialist ratings that unlock guns and improved abilities just like in prior games, but I also like how much it makes everything way more clear. The downside is there's few opportunities for stealth. I stand by that Syphon Filter is like 80 to 90% action shooter and 10 to 20% stealth, but the addition of some stealth does help break up the gameplay. They also added the ability to stealth kill enemies from the water, which is just awesome and reminds me so much of Splinter Cell. The stealth kill animations are kinda bad, but hey, I ain't picky. There's also one where you kill the guy by kicking him in the balls, which is equally stupid and hilarious, and sure, why not?
Don't lose sight of her.
While playing Dark Mirror, I was confused as to why you'd want to unlock guns. Well, as it turns out, you can play both games in mission mode after unlocking them via the story mode. The main difference is that you can select your loadout before every level. I had some fun replaying levels with ridiculously overpowered weapons after completing the story. It adds an incentive to replay the game and max out your specialist ratings since it acts like a light RPG, just like it did in Omega Strain and Dark Mirror. Your sniper rifle with the gas, electric, and explosive darts return, and I didn't touch the thing until the late game, which I admit was a bit of a mistake on my part, since they're basically one-shot kills. Your goggles also return, but I struggle to remember if I ever used them more than once the entire game. It seems like every new SF game has a big new feature like the goggles in Dark Mirror or the underwater combat in Logan Shadow, but then they front load it at the start of the game, forget it for the last half of the game, and then also forget about the prior game's big new feature. There's one part where you have to protect a buddy by shooting enemies through walls, which is neat, but it goes on for way too long and is too forced. I get it's a linear game, and that's fine, but I wish the goggles and underwater combat allowed for more opportunities. I'd love to approach a room full of enemies with a couple solutions at my disposal. Maybe I can use the goggles to find a computer terminal that turns off the lights, and then I can use my night vision to take them out quietly. Or I could swim underwater, go around them, and come up on the other side and stealth kill some of them. Things like that. Deus Ex, Splinter Cell, and even Metal Gear Solid all allowed you to do this and were praised for it, so why not Syphon Filter? While I applaud the new additions, I do wish it was a more ambitious game in its design. The game starts off just like Dark Mirror. I think it might actually be identical, maybe. It's very, very close, which is fine, because there's 2 more short tutorials that go over the game's revamped cover and melee combat systems, as well as the underwater control. It's very short and concise, and Teresa learned to quit yapping so much. Also, this water just looks really nice. I'm a big fan. Morrowind, eat your heart out. The underwater tutorial introduces us to a guy named Dane Bishop. He's a new character. He's an Australian agent who excels in underwater combat. He also has a big personality, which is something this game excels at.
Assuming you don't get us killed.
Hey, have I ever let you down, buddy?
Yes.
I don't know if it's John Garvin becoming a better writer over time, or Greg Rucka's influence, but all the characters are way more distinct this time around. The voice acting and writing come together to make them way more memorable. Bishop is a reckless but dependable ex-SAS agent, and a welcome addition to the series. He plays off Gabe and Teresa well, with Teresa not being a fan and Gabe playfully playing along.
Let me handle this part, okay, darling? He's all yours. Gabe, I'm gonna let Dane show you the rest. I need a break.
The story begins with the IPCA being contacted by an Interpol agent called Cordell. He sends in Gabe and team to a US Navy supply ship that's being hijacked by a Syrian terrorist group. This group is led by a guy named Patar, an international criminal Gabe almost caught 1 year ago. Gabe wants a rematch, so he agrees to go. Patar is after something in one of the cargo holds, but he's not sure what, and Cordell isn't telling. Cordell wants us to secure it, and he's asking us because he can't go to the military.
I've got a score to settle with Patar. Tell Haddad to get her gear. She's got half an hour. And get hold of Leon. Tell her to cut her vacation short. We're gonna need her.
Gabe makes a stealthy entrance, since this is a stealth series. Teresa intercepts Special Forces chatter, and they're on the ship but facing heavy resistance, so Gabe attempts to make his way there to meet with them. Gabe finds a Spec Ops survivor, but his team was wiped out, and he himself quickly passes away. Leon's on holiday in Cyprus. It's only Gabe and his IPCA team for this op. Cordell tells Gabe the military can't know we're here, but Gabe and team aren't too happy. Garvin's writing always has the government officials and politicians being, or turning out to be, evil.
He's a politician.
And to be honest, it's pretty stale. Let's just do a quick recap. The agency itself was evil in the first and second games, and then the Secretary of State in the third game, then Mihai in Omega Strain, which is a bit of an exception, and then there's the ex-Interpol agent in Dark Mirror. So 4 out of 5 games had the US or Interpol being secretly evil, and we're not even sure where Logan Shadow lands yet. So with that in mind, why does Gabe even work for the US government if they're this corrupt? Imagine if your previous 4 out of 5 bosses turned out to be literally conspiring to kill you. Wouldn't you be the most distrustful and jaded person on Earth? Shouldn't Gabe be this PTSD-stricken survivalist hiding out in the Alaskan wilds? The antagonists of this series feel so boring, like they're just generically evil guys with really selfish reasons for being evil. I don't know, I roll my eyes, and that's even if I can remember who they are or their motivations.
He's a politician.
Anyway, midway through this mission, Alima tells Gabe to grab onto her chopper, and I'm not sure why. Gabe tells her to take off, as does Teresa. She doesn't listen and gets shot down.
What's going on? Report.
Alima's down.
Requesting medevac. Naval Command, come in. Cordell, anyone? Precision Strike Team is down. Someone acknowledge now.
I gotta get down there.
Gabe reaches her, but she's gone. If you're asking who, then I don't blame you. Alima was introduced in Omega Strain, but she never really played much of a role in the series. She was the pilot in that game, Dark Mirror, and now this, but she doesn't have much of a character. RIP. Enemy boats pull up alongside the hijacked US ship, so we're heading into the water to take them on. I won't lie, I love this part. It's not as open, but it definitely reminded me of the early Tenchu games. There's one specific level where you can board a few vessels out in the water via stealth. You can do the same here, and it's awesome. You feel like such a badass. More of this, please. You silently board the boat, kill its crew, plant explosives, and then bounce before they go off. One of the ships is even moving while you're trying to board it. The explosion is close to the US ship, opening a hole in it which Gabe enters through. You can get the shotgun here, and it's a blast to use. Get it? Blast? Because it's a shotgun? Inside the confidential part of the ship, the cargo is already gone.
Logan, I should have known better than to trust you with such a sensitive mission.
Wrong, Cordell. If I hadn't trusted you, my pilot would still be alive.
She was expendable, Logan, just like you. Stop the tar. If he gets away with the contents of...
I don't give a damn about your cargo, Cordell. I'll take care of the tar. But I'm doing it for Alima. I'm done with you.
The US military begins sinking its own ship, while Gabe faces off against the first boss. How do you beat this guy? Well, you can throw grenades to make them all floppy. Gabe tries to get Cordell to call off the US's attack, but he leaves us on red. Gabe jumps from an explosion, and then he's just kinda back at IPCA headquarters. It doesn't explain how he escaped or who picked him up. Alima died, and she was his ride. Also in Omega Strain, Leon flew overseas and fought a lot of bad dudes just to grab Imani's body. So did we just leave Alima? Also, that makes me wonder, why didn't we grab the pilots' bodies when we grabbed Imani? We just left them to burn. I'm getting off topic, but it makes you think. Back at IPCA headquarters, Cordell got a warrant to raid our HQ.
You know what your problem is, Logan? You're reckless. You're a one-man army who follows the rules when it suits you.
Cordell raises a great point, that Gabe isn't really beholden to the US or even the president. Often he'll run off and do his own thing. If the games weren't from his point of view, he'd be an anti-hero or even an antagonist. If it were anyone else, it'd be no bueno. Cordell shows Gabe pictures of Leon not in Cyprus. She lied about where she went, and she's been seen with some unknown guy. Why did she lie about where she went? Gabe needs more information, a lead, so he contacts Dane Bishop. I mentioned him earlier, but TLDR, he's an underwater specialist. We all head to the shipwreck site of the US Navy ship that was scuttled earlier. Bishop brings along his own personal sub, hopefully not controlled with a Mad Catz controller. There's some anti-ship mines placed down here, which Bishop's sub can't get by, but Gabe can pull him aside. We need the sub because we need to cut open a hole. This is a really cute part where you gotta find a hollow section of the ship to cut into. Then you gotta defend Bishop from the Russians? Yeah, so Spetsnaz are on the scene, which raises more questions. Gabe believes there will be courier files for the cargo that the ship was hauling. Files with information on what the cargo actually was, and maybe how Leon's involved. Cordell implies she's related to this, so he knows more than he's letting on. I really enjoyed this level, because sure the water doesn't play a huge role, it does add a lot to the ambience. After playing Dark Mirror with its drab and forgettable levels, it's so refreshing to play a game with distinct and memorable locations. One of the doors is locked too tight for Gabe, but we can blow it open with a nearby warhead, leading to a pretty funny exchange.
There we go.
Damn it, Gabe! You are not using a warhead to open that door!
I'm not using the entire warhead.
Logan, come in. I just felt the whole ship move.
On my way to the reactor room.
How'd you get past that door?
I pulled a Dane Bishop.
The Russians beat Gabe to the files, but why are they here, and how does everyone know about this classified cargo? This is a nuclear-powered ship too, which isn't good, since the Russians' assault on it is threatening the reactor. With Bishop's help, Gabe stabilizes the reactor, but the Russians still have the courier information. Their leader meets Gabe for a fight, just as an explosion separates him from Bishop. The boss fight is really lackluster, of course. You can use the sniper to make sure you only hit the enemy, since he's standing in front of the reactor, and it's just not very engaging or fun, and yeah, I'm not a fan. If you miss a shot, it'll probably hit the reactor behind him, which instant ends the level. The idea of it sounds great, but because the enemy AI will only go to either the right or left side, you just gotta place your cursor over that space and he'll run into it. It's hard to describe how bad it is and how mentally checked out you'll be while playing. You place the cursor on the right, wait for him to pop out where your cursor is, and then you hit R1. Do the same for the left side, repeat this like 5 times, and then the level ends. It's not nearly as bad as Dark Mirror's boss battles, but it's kinda close. Gabe grabs the files and makes a dash for Bishop's sub outside the wreck. The Americans are coming to blow the ship, so we don't have much time. Outside the wreck, more Russians attack while we defend the sub, repair the sub, then defend the sub again, but this time from an even bigger sub. There's always bigger fish in the sea. How does Gabe, with his flippy floppies and nerves of steel, beat a large submersible? Well, by pulling off the hydraulic system located on the outside of the sub. Duh! The Americans arrive and are dropping depth charges. You can use them to help pull off the sub's hydraulic system.
Can't control this! Ah! I can see the drift's anchors straight ahead. Get us out of here.
And Gabe and Bishop head off into the underwater sunset together, presumably holding hands. Back at base, Teresa uses the courier files to find out that MI6 accidentally took pictures of Leon because MI6 was running surveillance to track smugglers along the Azerbaijan border, which is currently a war zone. They ran her face through their tracking software, which revealed Leon as a US agent, so MI6 told Cordell, since Cordell is Interpol. It's a little convoluted, but it makes sense if you're paying attention. Anyway, still no idea who the man with Leon is, so Gabe heads to Azerbaijan to meet up with Maggie Powers, the MI6 agent from prior games. Maybe she'll have more information. Gabe finds the hotel room Leon's staying at, but it's empty.
Someone's here. Going silent. What the hell? Who are you working for? Where's Leon? You're not with Kadrenko, and you're not with Al Jamil. That means we're on the same side, so talk.
Spetsnaz patrols return every hour.
Then you'd better talk. Fast. Or do you want to be hauled off to one of Kadrenko's gulags?
I'm looking for Shen.
Who?
There's no time. You must follow me. Then we talk.
Направьте туда подразделение.
Come now or we both die.
Они здесь!
It's too late. Take cover. The rooftop is our only way out. We must work together.
Ты козёл!
The game likes to throw in trip mines on and off. It'll throw you for a loop because you'll be playing for an hour with nothing going on for them all of a sudden to show up again. Speaking of features that disappear only to randomly appear again, the thermal vision. This is the best use of it I've seen, as you have to kill enemies before they reach Trinidad, the Chinese agent, by shooting them through the wall. It's a neat feature that drags on for just a bit too long. I also wish it was built into the game outside of scripted segments. It'd be interesting if there were more walls you could shoot through elsewhere in the game. Gameplay designs like this, being constricted to set pieces, is always what sets Syphon Filter back from Metal Gear and Splinter Cell. Those games gave you tools and then facilitated enemy encounters that relied on the player to overcome. They rarely gave you a tool, then a segment to use that tool, with such a segment being the only time said tool is useful, which is what Syphon Filter almost always does. Trinidad and Logan make a swift escape by jumping into a canal.
Follow me.
That's suicide.
Подкрепление на крышу! Вперед, быстро!
You're used to trusting women, aren't you, Logan?
Damn it.
Trinidad's gone, but Maggie Powers is being held nearby. Gabe frees her just as an enemy helicopter rushes us. You need to grab its attention while Maggie fires RPGs.
Maggie, wake up!
I thought that was the end of us.
Nope, not yet anyway. We should leave before reinforcements arrive.
Gabe wakes up captured, while Trinidad shares some surprising news about Leon and her past.
Know the name Shen, do you?
The only name I care about is Leon Xing.
Not Lian Xing. Shen Xing.
Who? Who is Shen Xing?
You corrupt her. Steal her from the People's Republic. But you know nothing of her, do you? The guard will return soon. We don't have much time. Lian is her maiden name. Shen is her married name.
What the hell are you talking about?
When Lian defected, how long ago? 12 years? She left behind a husband, Dr. Shenrei.
Who are you? How would you know all this?
But then I am not surprised she didn't tell you about him. Why would she? She was always, let's say, emotionally detached. Isn't she still? My code name is Trinidad. Chinese intelligence. Lian and I were partners years ago. I remained loyal to the people. She did not.
You're lying. Why should I believe you? You're working with Kadrenko.
Then why would I be freeing you? Shenrei, Lian's husband, has fled China with Lian's help. We want him back.
Why?
It's simple. You know Lian better than I do. If I help you escape, you can help me find them. I help you, you help me. The guards are coming.
The start of this level is a bit notable because you're given the chance to escape. If you fail to do so, you'll escape while in your cell. The difference is minor, being a change of clothes for about 5 minutes and a very slightly different cutscene. I'm a bit annoyed by this, to be honest, because watching promotional interviews with the devs, they talk this up as if it was a big deal. It felt like watching a movie trailer when the movie was nothing like the trailer. The movie was even pretty good, but oversold. You can either break free from the chair restraints by button mashing, or if you're thrown into the cell, you can knock out the guard and grab your cell key from him. Like I said, the difference is extremely minor, and all told, it's maybe 5 minutes apart from each other, so either way, you'll end up in the same spot, getting back your gear. Gabe grabs his gear, breaks out Maggie powers, and the two escape by going through the sewers, but Maggie's a little hesitant. I can't say I blame her.
We can take them? Logan, what are you...
Escaping the gulag is a nice change of pace in regards to the environment. If there's one thing I've really enjoyed about Logan's Shadow, it's the change of locales. Even the distances you fight enemies from changes up quite a bit.
There. Looks like we've got the upper hand now.
There's an airfield nearby, which Maggie and Gabe use to return to Saudi Arabia, just as Cordell dismantles the IPCA.
You son of a bitch. You knew from the start. You made me your bird dog.
It's about all you're good for. Look over there, Logan. Last night, someone blew up half the desert. Iraq's largest oil field. 20 square miles gone.
Batar. Shen's prototype.
You're damn right, Batar. And guess who's helping him? Your friend gets around, doesn't she? Seems Batar was the highest bidder. The president's pulling the plug, Logan. Agency's gone. You are officially retired. We're done here. Get him on a transport.
You're making a mistake, Cordell. If Batar has Shen, he's building another device. You need me.
Go home, Logan. Track down that blonde you knocked up. Hargrove, or whatever her name is. Find your kid, get married, and get over it. Because you're in the private sector now, you arrogant son of a bitch.
Gabe meets up with Teresa, who convinces him to help Leon, even though he doesn't know what's really going on. Batar's base is in Syria, and he has a WMD of some sort, and Leon and her husband Shen are connected somehow, so the two head off to Batar's base. You team up with some American Rangers who are attempting to assault his base at the same time. The idea of Gabe just waltzing up to a US Army Ranger in an active war zone and asking to team up, it's hilarious. I think it's really funny. These games were never realistic, but it's approaching dangerously silly territory. You help the tank until it gets blowed up. Inside Batar's base is Leon.
I know you have a lot of questions. I don't have time to explain.
Wait. Take this. Your comm unit. I found it in Karanka. Your hotel room.
Azerbaijan. Then you know everything.
No, Leon. I don't know anything. There's no time now. We have to get out of here.
I know a way. Come on.
We escape together, or you can let her die. I appreciate when games add in moments like these. So turns out Shen, Leon's husband from her old life, built a device that can generate unlimited power. Though Batar's using it as a massive bomb. Leon and Gabe grab evidence, showing this isn't Batar's main base. There's actually a second. Thankfully, we find a map with its location, but not before grabbing evidence of Cordell's involvement. Cordell worked with Batar to get Shen out of China, along with the energy device that was in the classified cargo hold from the start of the game. Batar was ambitious enough to take it for himself, which is why he grabbed it from the first level before the Americans sank the ship. How's Leon involved in all this? Well, Shen asked her for help, and she felt obligated.
You're finished, Logan. What are you doing?
Leon uncovered something interesting in Batar's files. But you know all about it, don't you?
What are you talking about? Let go of me.
It never made any sense, did it? How would Batar have known about what was in Hold 5 in the first place? He knew because you hired him to get Shen across the border.
I had to use them. The Russians had people in the field way ahead of us. MI6 was already there. They would have beaten us to Shen. I had no choice.
I've sent the entire file to Washington. The MI6 records, the mercenary contracts, the St. Helen orders. Everything. You're done, Cordell.
I used Batar to get the job done, Logan. Just like I used you.
Find a nice retirement home. Buy a dog. Take up golf. But get over it. Because you're in the private sector now, you arrogant son of a bitch.
This isn't over. Let go of me.
couldn't tell you. I tried, but it just seemed, I don't know, wrong, I guess.
Because you were married to him?
No. It seemed selfish to ask you for help when I was the one who left Shen. I abandoned him. All those years, I felt so guilty. I just buried it all. That part of my life, it didn't exist anymore. Can you understand that?
Understand that you lied to me? Jeopardized the agency? Almost started a war?
We're trying to stop a war. Shen knew this would happen. Cordell, Kudrenko, Bitar, MI6, Trinidad? Look at them. They all want the same thing. What will they do if they get Shen's technology? Any of them. Well, Shen won't give it to them. He asked me for help. I said yes. He still needs my help. Our help. You saw what his device can do. If Bitar charges another device...
I know what's at stake. We've been partners for how long? 10 years? You know what it's like to think you know someone? To find out you know nothing?
Gabe! If I had it to do over, I wouldn't change it. Shen needed my help. I had to go.
You trust her, right? Gabe, it's Leon, for God's sake.
At this point, all that matters is we stop Bitar.
When this goes off...
I'll be ready.
Make as much noise as you can, then get the hell out. I want you out of the operations area by the time I'm inside. If I can't get to the device in time...
Understood. Gabe...
Not now. Let's deal with Bitar.
Bitar's base is in a dam inside Syria. Gabe, Leon, and Teresa team up like old times to take out Bitar, save Shen, and retrieve or destroy the energy device. While fighting through the base, Gabe runs into an old friend, Trinidad. She's captured, but we release her because she knows the code to get deeper into the base. And she instantly betrays us. She couldn't even make it 2 minutes. What an unlikable character.
She's on the run. Gabe, I told you not to trust her.
Can't worry about her now. I'm too close to the charge room.
Deep inside the dam, we find Shen. We help him with his device. It's charging, but it's also unstable. Gabe pulls a snake in the microwave room by doing some weird sacrifice, but it's not really a sacrifice because there's no cost. I don't get the point of this. Anyway, how does the device work? No idea, but it's blue and glowy. Shen tells us it's called XZ2, which sounds like one of Elon's kids. Just as soon as it's charged and stabilized, Bitar grabs it and runs, which culminates in another terrible boss battle. Boss battles being in suspicious quotes, but these are always so bad. I truly have no idea why they kept doing them. So you're on this industrial elevator, slowly chasing Bitar, who's on his own industrial elevator. Y'all are going like 7 miles an hour, it's looping so you'll never reach the end, and then an enemy guy is always placed in the same spot. To beat it, you gotta shoot the 4 hydraulic tanks on Bitar's elevator, then you shoot the device, which turns out actually isn't fully charged. This causes an explosion which conveniently kills Bitar, but not Logan. Shen, Logan, and Leon group up outside the dam.
It was not a mistake, leaving my homeland. But I should never have trusted your government, the others. I hoped my work would change the world, end poverty. I was a fool. But no more. Let me go. I would disappear, go into hiding. No one will ever build another...
They'll find you. Half the world is looking for you. You can't hide forever, Shen.
Leon will come with me. Help me. With her at my side, I have been a fool in other ways. My work, this, my obsession drove you away. I'm done with that as well.
Shen, I
never stopped loving you, Shenxing. Come with me.
Drop it.
放下武器。
Trinidad.
该回家了，迅雷。
Gabe, we can't let her take him. If they get a hold of this technology...
No one's taking anyone. Drop the gun, Trinidad.
Just shoot her, just shoot her, just shoot her.
You were right. There is no hiding from me anymore. Shenxing. When we were young, you called me a man of words. You wished I were a man of actions. What do you think of me now?
Don't! Shen! No!
Shen is dead. My business here is finished. Do you agree?
There's a post-credit scene that takes place in America.
It has nothing to do with you.
Then what? Why are you retiring?
I don't know. Maybe Cordell was right. It's time to move on. Look up the kid. Try something else for a while. The business requires too many secrets. One question. When Shen asked you to go away with him, what was your answer going to be?
Leon! Look out! Hold on, Gabe. No!
Gabe's supposed death ends the series, that along with lackluster sales. You're supposed to be shocked and feel something by this ending, but I don't, because every step of the way through this series, it's just been one fake-out death after another. I just don't care. You can't "but actually" me so many times and expect me to get invested in it again and again and again. You're just lying over and over again, expecting the player to fully buy in with every claim. But that's the thing about lying. The more you do it, the less people believe you. And when it comes to Syphon Filter, I don't believe a word its story says. There are very few rules since characters just die and then come back with no consequences. So for me, the series ends with an indifferent shrug. If Gabe's dead, I don't care. Don't care if he's alive either. And I don't care if we'll never get another entry in the series. I'll be curious to see what it is, of course, but the writing just got worse and worse and worse, with only fleeting moments of interest from me. Trinidad was never set up to be this noteworthy villain. She's some generic Chinese agent, yet she's the one who finally kills Gabe. And it's hard to even think of Gabe as our Gabe, because I mean, look at his face! He doesn't sound the same anymore, doesn't look the same, he kind of doesn't even act the same either. So I don't know, I hate to end the series on such a melancholic note. I mean, Syphon Filter will always have a nostalgic place in my heart. I don't hate the series, but it's even worse than that because after having played every game, making videos and writing about each one, digesting the storylines, reading, watching a ton of development history, I'm just left with this underwhelming feeling that I just don't care. So as you watch the series protagonist bleed out while sad music plays, remember to like and subscribe, I guess. I'll forget it. See you next time.
My God, Syphon Filter.